For the last 4 years, I've had the privilege of sitting next to Michael Kickstar Stockley for almost every single broadcast. And while you've been able to take in the memes and hear us talk all the time over some exciting matches and some less than exciting matches, I think everybody can agree that it's been a real privilege to spend all of that time with him. Over the last week or so, we've all been grieving, and everybody suffered in different ways. Yesterday, the tribute that was here on the North American League was exceedingly touching, and I don't think there's anything I could say that would ever top what you saw. But what I will say is this: thank you. Thank you to Michael. Thank you to Kickstar, or KiX, or whatever you called him. Thank you for the memories that all of you get to enjoy. Thank you for the memories that I got to make with him. And thank you for seeing in me somebody that was worthy of sitting next to you for all those events across all those countries and all those continents. It's been a pretty hard week, I'll be completely honest, and I'm sure most of you can agree with that. And there's nothing wrong with taking as much time to grieve as you need. And while I've tried to go back and watch some of the broadcasts that he and I have done together, it's been pretty challenging, and there have been a lot of tears shed. But the one thing is that while we might not ever hear him cast again, you can always go back and hear the words that he weaved into all of the storylines across all of our regions in Rainbow Six competitive history. There's a living memory of everything that he said. And I know that when I'm ready, I will cherish that, and I hope that you can do the same. Today, we're going to be bringing on some old friends that have known him to talk during this pre-show and share some memories and stories that they have, and hopefully set the tone for what will be an exciting and thrilling final play day. So, with no further ado, I'm going to take a step back and we'll welcome you in to our pre-show. Welcome to our pre-show. I'm joined by Devin Emzo Becker, who spent many long years in the original beginnings of Rainbow Six Esports over in Katowice, Poland. And I wish I could have seen you under other circumstances, to be frank. Right. But it's nice to have you here.
At least we got to spend a lot of time together before this as well, in KiX's presence as well, as a group. And it's funny because I actually did meet KiX before we started casting together back at the Season 2 finals in Leicester. Back when he was a player, they won, they did fantastic. Overall, just the impression I got of KiX was his enthusiasm and passion for the game was like infectious, right? When you were talking to him there, when we were all talking to him, especially after the way they played, you could tell he loved the game. And he's one of those people that's just, he's into something, he's into it and loves it, wants to talk about it. And that was a passion I shared as well, was just really loving talking about the game. And so it was fantastic to meet him then. I didn't anticipate then that he would make that transition over to being a commentator. And when he did, it was like, oh, well, this guy knows the game. I'd actually followed him online as well, watched him stream and play. And so it was exciting actually to see someone with that just passion for the game come. Someone who wasn't like, oh, I'm going to collect a paycheck and just commentate the game. It was like someone who's like, I want to be here. I want to talk about this game. I want to help educate everyone else on all the stuff I know from playing it at a pro level. And it was great to be in that presence, honestly.
There are very few people who had such a close front row view of his growth as a player and then as a commentator and even as a person.
Right.
Did you ever expect, looking back now on where he came from, that this is the impact that he would have on our scene and this is the person that he would grow into?
I mean, back then, no. Now, absolutely. Because honestly, when KiX first started, he was a kid. Not just in age, but like a bit in mentality, right? You know, he was a little unprofessional. He was a little unpolished, right? He jumped headfirst into the actual casting, right? But as a person growing up, going through the end of his adolescence, a somewhat young adult at that time, you could definitely see the growth over like the first year was him trying to find kind of his place in things, right? He just jumped all the way from America to Poland. He was still living at home. He hadn't had a chance to really like go out there. And I almost feel like we ended up kind of as his dads or uncles in a way, like just because a lot of us were a little bit older than him, we'd had a little more life experience. But he was so into whatever he did that whatever you showed him, whatever you tried to be like, hey Parker, hey Michael, check this out, or you showing him stuff, or Milo showing him stuff, he would really get into it and be for it, you know, and you really saw that growth. Like by year 2, he was really starting to come into it. He was just, I mean, I hate to say this, but he was becoming a man, really. And you could see it. And then when he got his girlfriend as well, that really, you could see the change, right? When he really stepped up in acting more like a man, and it was great to be there for that. I don't have a kid, so it's like the closest experience I've had to having someone that I watched grow up in front of me like that. And it was fantastic to see, and I'm glad we got to be there for that and see just that maturity level as like really fleshing him out as a person. And I think he showed that because he's so blunt and so honest, that you always got to see that on the stream. You always got to see that on broadcast. It wasn't like there's 2 sides to Michael. You saw Michael. You knew how he was, absolutely. And you saw our podcast kind of things we did, almost like in his apartment.
Yeah.
Right? It was the same kind of thing. Like Michael was Michael, and there was no one else like him, and there was never 2 Michaels. And I really appreciate that about him.
In an industry that's dominated by big personalities and egos and personas almost, right? It was really nice to just know who he was. You never had to second guess him. And, you know, for me in particular, as his partner, it's a hard business to navigate on your own, especially when you don't have the full trust of people around you, because it is a competition. People are competing for these spots. Everybody wants to be, all the casters want to be in Pro League. But I always knew that I could trust him, and I always knew that he would be fully honest and forthcoming, and that's rare to find.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, obviously, he had this chain of vouching too, right? He got vouched for by Panky, and then he vouched for you. And I don't ever feel like, it's funny because it's a competitive industry, but there was always this camaraderie in Poland. We're all foreign. We're all out there together. We're all there just living, trying to make it through it in a non-English speaking country for the most part, and sticking together as a pair. And I don't know if a lot of other esports, if they have that same level with their casting crew and stuff like that, but we always felt a bit more like a family that had to kind of help each other out, help take care of each other, because we had very little like guidance from the top as well, right? We didn't really have a boss telling us, here's how you need to do it, or here's what you need to do. It was always us looking out for each other and ourselves to figure out how to do it. And we kind of came in stages, right? Like I came in and Panky had to help guide me. Then KiX came in and I had to help guide him. And then you came in and we all kind of worked together. And Milos had a little bit of experience as well. And like everyone brought their own thing to it. And I think it was nice because what KiX brought was the perspective of being a player that none of the rest of us had at that level, to bring that insight and that knowledge and that. But it's also the point of view of a player, the passion that comes from that. Like Troy was talking about that yesterday, right? That they could talk about that as being pro players, that level of what it's like to play like that, and then bringing that to the desk, but also bringing that to us as a group. We all had our own dynamic, and I think it was great to cast. And I know a lot of people, for example, thought sometimes that me and KiX didn't like each other or something to cast well together, which is so funny because I really loved the cast with KiX. And it's so funny, it's really because neither of us went off on tangents. We both just loved to talk about the game so much. It was just like 2 analysts just talking. It felt like some Siskel and Ebert reviewing a movie kind of thing, right? Just both of us just wanted to talk about like that player, or this player, or that strategy. And it was very exciting to me because we were both the 2 color analysts, right? So we had that in common, that we were both the 2. I mean, he moved to doing a bit more play-by-play than I did, but we were both that guy that was meant to kind of dive deep into it. And when we got to do that together, we didn't have a ton of casts together because of the pairings, the way they ended up when he joined. But every time we did, I felt like that was special. And I went home thinking about all the stuff we talked about and just being really excited. I'm like, man, I hope we get to do that again, because it was always a rare treat.
From my perspective, I always loved listening to the 2 of you, because if you ever wanted to hear a roast fest, like the roast fest would be incredible. You 2 would just tear teams apart, and it was enjoyable to listen to. But as much as I would love to sit here and continue this, we have a greater family than just the 4 of us in Poland, and our family has grown over the last 2 years. And the EU League just finished their final Playday earlier today, and I know that they spoke about it on their broadcast, but he had friends on that team, dear friends, people that he's known for years, and I want to be able to bring them in here so that they can speak to him and share some memories that they have that they made with him over the years. So we'll bring in the EU talent as well. We're being joined by a couple of them. And I just want to say hello. Once again, it's nice to see all of you, but I hate that it's under these circumstances. So hello and welcome.
Hello.
You can all take the lead. You don't need to be scared to say hello. You can all talk over each other if you'd like.
As you said, Parker, it's just, so difficult for it to be in these circumstances. It's not how anybody wants us to have these group chats or to meet up, but at the same time, it is, it's an honour to be here, to be able to say a few words and to reminisce about time spent with KiX.
Yeah, I appreciate all of you coming on. I imagine that this is probably very difficult for you. You've all known KiX for a various amount of time and have all had very different interactions with him. And I know that you will all be able to tell a story that will be completely different from one another. If it's all right with you, I'll start with you, Ace, and just have you share a memory that you hold dear about him.
Yeah, of course. I was thinking across, a number of interactions that I've had with Michael over the years. And the one that really stuck with me was from SI 2020, mainly because it's one that not a lot of people will know about just by virtue of what it was. And I was going out for a walk one day. You'd actually invited us to drinks, Parker, on our first night there, which was very kind of you. Des and I were the new boys at SI 2020, and we all got together and we had a chat over a few drinks and got to know each other. And Michael was there, obviously, and his knowledge of Siege on that first night honestly left me feeling like I needed to play the tutorials again, because it was just on another level. But the day after, I was actually going out for a short walk to the toy store to buy my daughter a gift, and I heard some footsteps behind me, and I looked round in the hotel corridor, and Michael was catching up to me, and he said, Tim, are you on your way out? I was going out for a walk. I wouldn't mind a bit of company. I was a bit bored sat in my room. Do you mind if I join you? And it struck me at the time, how friendly that was and how comfortable it made me feel, because it had been so easy for him or anybody else to just walk out of the hotel and go for the walk on their own, as they were planning to do. But he made that effort, and we went and spent about an hour together walking round, and he asked me a lot of questions about my family and my life and my experience, and was more than happy to answer mine about his as well. And the thing was, at the time and still now, I never really stopped seeing Michael through a fan's eyes, even though I was fortunate enough to spend time with him and work with him. And I don't mind admitting, I was texting my wife at the time and I was like, I'm out for a walk with Kickstar. This is, it's unbelievable to me. This is such a huge inspiration, and just the way that he made that effort to make me feel comfortable, to spend that time with me. And we got back to the hotel and he said, it's been really nice having a chat with you. And, I'm really pleased that, I saw you coming out, and it was great to get the opportunity. And honestly, I didn't realise at the time how important that memory would end up being. I told my wife the news the other day, and straight away she said he was such a big inspiration to you, and he was. His passion is something that I have always aspired to be able to deliver. Even half of what he brought has always been in my mind, because when I watched games that he casted, I felt like I was there. I felt like I was part of it, and it was just so special. It really was.
Did he walk abnormally fast by any chance? Because that
well,
was
I'm
one
quite
thing
a fast
he always
walker,
did.
Parker. So the funny thing about it, there was a funny thing about it, and that is the other thing that I took from KiX was his style. Not specifically, I know it didn't come out in the big florals and things, but KiX always had a very specific style, and it's obvious that he really cared about his appearance, and he wasn't scared about his individual style and not wearing the same as everybody else. And I took that a little bit. That was a big inspiration to me. But on the day, he looked so stylish. It was unreal. He had a long coat on. I think he had a lightweight sort of sweatshirt on. Trousers, shoes. Now, you'll know, Parker, that's not being dressed for the Canadian winter. So we went out for a walk in the snow, and he laughed when we got there. He was like, I think we might need to take an Uber back. I really wasn't dressed for this. And it was pretty funny.
Now, Hap, you got the privilege of sitting next to him and casting in Benelux. Is there anything that really jumps out or stands out to you about your time that you spent together?
Yeah, it is funny how Ace just said it's felt like looking at it through the eyes of a fan, because what some might not know is that during the third ever tournament of Benelux, KiX came over actually, and I was playing at the time. He's given me my fair share of roasts. I played Blackbeard like I should be playing Blitz, and I played Blitz like I should be playing Blackbeard, for example. But at the end, we had a little chat there, and he was asking me how to pronounce my name. So I told him how, and he said, "Yeah, there's no way I'm ever going to do that again. You're better off changing it for the future." So that's how I eventually got down to Hap. I just shortened out my name because it included my first, which is difficult to pronounce. And yeah, 3 seasons after that, we got to cast together during the Benelux Season 4 finals, and it was like it is kind of weird because I started looking like watching Pro League, and KiX was one of those faces. He's always been there, and I really looked up to him. He was an inspiration to me to get to start casting as well, and then suddenly I'm casting with him for my home ground finals really coming through. And again, like we went to pick him up at the airport, and the first thing he did was just give me a hug out of nowhere. Like the only time we met before was Benelux Season 3. Never really talked much besides that, and the first thing he did was just give me a hug, and it just struck me as like so friendly, totally unexpected, and it was kind of like a dream come true casting with him as well that same event.
How did you find casting with him? Because this was the one thing that I had to deal with at the beginning. His passion just like it bled over. Did you ever feel like you had to rein in Kickstar and just kind of tell him to just let me talk?
I think the event was a bit like, so KiX has a lot of the passion, of course, but I'm a big Benelux fanboy as well, so I think it was just passion and passion just clashing against each other in that cast really. So it might have actually been KiX having to try and reel me in a little bit with being too passionate and not giving him enough time right there. I'm not quite sure. I remember hearing something like that afterwards.
Fresh, you got to work with him in a more intimate professional capacity, and you have a very different experience than the other 3 who are on this broadcast. Is there anything about that you'd like to share?
Just about his honesty, really. I know Emzo mentioned it beforehand, and he was the one who gave me a chance as an analyst in the team, right? And his brutal honesty, he said, "Jack, your spreadsheets are really good, but you don't know competitive Siege very well, and I'll teach you it." And we must have sat for the next 2 months watching scrims every day, and I was just able to pick his mind, as a player and as a coach and his experiences. And, honestly, I kind of, that was my gateway into competitive Siege, and I wouldn't have had a career in competitive Siege but for KiX helping me out and kind of almost teaching me everything I knew, I guess.
Did you ever find that he was overloading you? Did you at any point? Or did you just take it in willingly?
Yeah, I was like a sponge. I just wanted to learn absolutely everything I could. He demanded a lot, and I think, everyone who kind of knows him, he demands the best from everyone. But, I was just so privileged to work with him. And I subbed in for a scrim once against Fours, which is now Virtus Pro. And even though he's kind of very serious a lot of the time, I ended up in a 1v4. And bear in mind, I'm not a very good Siege player, right? I'm in a 1v4. KiX starts play-by-play casting me, and honestly, I get 2 kills, and he nearly lost it, and I lost the round, but obviously it was a bit of a highlight for me. I was trying to find a clip of it, but it appears to have been lost.
That's the unfortunate thing, is that so many like those memories we wish we could just immortalize and keep forever, but they're things that we can cherish. Now, Jess, I know that you had a particularly special relationship with Michael. I got to see it firsthand at a number of events, and I just figured that you're probably going to want to share some pretty touching moments with all of us.
Well, it would be remiss of me not to bring up one of the best memories that you and I have. And I don't have a really good analogy for it, but since I'm currently living in Italy, I guess this is the best I've got, is that Michael would dance like his arms were spaghetti, boiled spaghetti. And he would flail his body around as best he could when he was dancing, when he was drinking, allowed his muscles to relax, and for Michael to just get, as I would say in Australia, as loosey-goosey as possible. And that was probably one of my funniest memories of Michael, obviously in Sweden, when we were there for DreamHack. That was my very first LAN as a coach. And yeah, and he threw his body around, and I just remember thinking, oh my God, Michael is so drunk right now. Like, what do we do? Do we dance with him? Do we get him water? I didn't know what to do. I was trying to be like the loving sister at the time. And then after he had done that, or in between it, I can't remember, he danced a lot, mind you. He would sit with me, and then he'd get into the nitty gritty of, getting personal and try to learn who I was and find out everything. And I mean, I think the best thing about Michael that I knew, especially when I got to sort of intimately know him throughout those events, was that he was unapologetically Michael. And there was no one better for me to aspire to be than unapologetically myself, because he always gave me the confidence to be myself. And I think that was the best role model I've ever had in this industry in the entire time I've been here. And just watching him with the spaghetti arms that night, and then coming over and just being him and having the honesty, which is something I'm obviously very proud of being, as quite an honest person and an open book. And he was that way. And yeah, I mean, every event, as you know, Parker, he would find a way to make everyone feel welcomed. And obviously the inside little jabs and jokes, he's good at those. And yeah, I have so many memories. Obviously, many things you could say about Michael and the things that he said to me. But I suppose Mexico and some of the things that you and him told me, I'll never forget. It really pushed me to think about myself in a better light. And if someone else can make you feel better, they're a good person. Michael was a good person. Very, very good person.
You focused a lot on how he was as a person, but I remember you in an interview stated that he was a role model as well as a caster. As you moved from coach into becoming a broadcaster yourself, what was it that you took from him the most to maybe not necessarily model yourself off of, but to use to build your own reputation as a caster?
When you want to be like someone, it's difficult because you don't want to be a mirror image of them. But what I wanted was to encompass the game knowledge that he had and, put it into my own persona and my own personality, and be proud of the things that I had learned in the game as a player, as an analyst, as a coach, and now as a commentator. That's a hard thing to do, is to take all of this knowledge and put it into consumable, bite-sized amounts, which is what, Michael always was able to do. And I think that was the one thing I looked at him for, was that if I'm going to transfer from being the coach and analyst that types, 2,000 word documents for each game, I need to be able to do in 20 words what I did in 2,000 words. And that's such a difficult thing to do. And you got to think about a lot of the audience, not knowing as much as those of us in the scene who have been here for a very long time. So he managed to make everyone feel welcomed. And I think that that's a really important part of our esport, is that anyone could have come and tuned in and they would have felt welcomed and understanding of the circumstances inside the game. So that was the biggest thing for me, was that he could transfer this passion that you guys are all talking about, of which was just almost, you could grab it in the air when we were at events and we're at lands, you could just almost grab it. It was that thick. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to be able to do that and bring everyone into the love that we have for this game.
Well, even though Emzo touched on the fact that it was the four of us in Poland for so long, our family has grown considerably, and it's been an extraordinary privilege to be able to listen to the four of you put your voice to the action and the strategies and all of that over in Europe. And I know that while you haven't seen Michael in varying degrees of time, that it's probably been an unbelievably tough week for you. And I really appreciate you coming on and being able to share those memories, and I hope that there are opportunities for you to share more in the future. So thank you very much for coming on, and hopefully we'll be able to catch up at the next set of live events.
Thank you, Parker.
Thanks, Parker.
Now,
Thank you.
We're not fully done just yet. We have one more special guest for you, and dare I say it, the cuddliest of them all, Devin, and your former duo, Gesson Finge, aka Milos the Medic. And we wanted to bring him in here to conclude the pre-show, because it was, as you pointed out, for so long, it was the four of us working together as a family. And I don't think that there's anybody else that we haven't spoken to yet that could be able to say such touching words as him. So if we can bring on Milos and say hello. How are you?
Hello, Parker. Hello, Devin. I'm doing as best as I can given this whole situation. I, like everybody said, I wish we could have, seen one another in person in a better situation than this. But you know what? We always will be a close family. So hey, even at distance, we're still very close.
Is there any one particular memory of Michael that is most vivid to you from all, I mean, God knows how many memories we made with him, but is there one in particular, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, is there one in particular that jumps out?
I think going back, after casting from midnight till 7 in the morning, walking back home because we got dropped off taxi like outside of our apartment block, and getting to talk to him after the broadcast, and then singing a bit. Honestly, he loves and always will, I think, love Istanbul, not Constantinople. He sang the song a million times, and just getting to walk home with him cold mornings in Katowice and singing the song together was something that will stay with me forever. Uh, I think you know that he could only really hear out of one ear, so
If
not
that.
always the most musically gifted person, I guess, in this case, but still it would I mean it still was a lot of fun to hear him when he's having fun, enjoying the music and all. It's cool. Never forget it.
I mean, it was the mundane things that were most enjoyable, right? Just going and grocery shopping, like three of us would all go grocery shopping together at 6 a.m.
Just being people.
Yeah, just living, and I think you touched on it perfectly. We're in a foreign country, in a part of the country that doesn't really speak the language we speak, and we didn't speak their language, and you feel almost isolated, right? And you're far from home. For you and Michael, Devin in particular, you both come from California. California to Poland is not just a hop, skip, and a jump. It's a mighty distance.
Every state is a flyover state there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like little things like that. Going to the beer hall and going to the movies, going clothing shopping. I know you didn't really come out clothing shopping that much with him, but I remember, and Gassan can relate to this.
Yeah.
Michael is significantly smaller than the average Polish man. So trying to find anything that fits him was completely impossible.
It was incredibly difficult, and he complained about it so many times, and I did too, because Slavic men especially are very boxy in their physiognomy, whereas we have more slanted shoulders. And I had hours of talk with him about, I wish I could get this, and we needed to go somewhere else in the EU to get that sort of thing. It's like, no, I'll buy it in California when I eventually go there. It took like 3 years for him to go there at some point. So yeah, it took a lot. I actually still have a what do you call it, a clip. It's like a shirt clip for your tie, and he bought it. It wasn't really exactly what he wanted. So he's like, hey Milos, do you want to have it? So I have it sitting in my room now, and I'm praying for the day where I get to wear a tie again and wear it. And this is a piece of KiX memorabilia that's with me.
Yeah. It's stuff like that I'm gonna miss. Obviously there's more to it, right? I haven't even begun to think about what it's gonna be like, sharing a chair or a stage with somebody else. But the things for me it was just like that friendship. You're just basic stuff. And the amount of times over the last week that I've just wanted to pick up my phone and just message him about this, by the way. And I can't. It's just, it's tough. And Gassan, I remember you got to Poland before I did, and he filled you in on his goal to get me to Poland at that point. And you and I first reached out through him, through a hilarious voice-to-text message that was not really English because the software wasn't really there at the time. And the one thing that I really picked up on was that in you he found a friend, when he'd been talking to me about how alone he felt there and how, how tough it was. And he was never shy about that. But with you, he found a friend. And, I think you're correct, Evan. I think we all kind of were his dad at some point. Not that,
the cool uncles.
Or the cool uncles, yeah. It was like his 3 dads that were out there trying to help him with things.
Baby.
Yeah. And it was just so wonderful. And, we would play games together, and we'd go out for dinner together, and we'd just share normal memories like anybody else, except we had extraordinary jobs, and it was just such a weird world to be in. And it really meant a lot to me, and I can only imagine it meant a lot to him as well.
Yeah,
It was an incredible time. I mean, Devin, how many times would we all like come back so early in the morning, like 6, 7 in the morning, and we'd have to like drag one another up to our apartments because we're so exhausted and we have a cast to prep for in like 10 hours. Or, I remember the one time where we all got together, the supermarket that was next to our apartment block opened at 6 a.m. And so imagine 4, English speakers that are in a supermarket that is staffed by exclusively Polish people, everybody speaking Polish. There was literally no other customer there except for us. And we are pulling off our own, shenanigans. Parker is pulling the trolley, and then KiX is holding onto it from the front, and they're zooming around in the empty supermarket with staff looking at him at their stock on the shelves like, what are these foreigners?
What the hell's wrong with these people?
Honestly, it was so much fun, and these sorts of things, like, you just can never forget about them. They're engraved in you forever.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the trolley part, because I remember I was pushing the cart the one time, and he was zipping all over the store, just like depositing the first thing he thought of. There was no plan of attack whatsoever. It was just like, oh, I want some chocolates. Oh, I want a soup. And he would just fly around the store, and that would be it.
That's just his enthusiasm for everything, right? He just gets an idea like, I want to do this. Like, he's so into that. I always remember the walks home were always just a very memorable part of the experience, because we'd walk home from the studio because it wasn't like a terribly far walk from where we were staying. Mm-hmm. And it was always just this, we'd had all this excitement, these hours of casting, talking, about the game. And then it was just like this cool down time where we were just talking as people, walking back. And it was always funny too, because it's like, because of KiX's one deaf ear, if you were walking on that side of him, he's like, what did you say? And you'd have to like move to the other side of him to talk to him.
Or he'd start walking backwards, he'd turn around and walk backwards, so his ear would be pointed at you.
But I just always remember we walked past like a playground or something, and he'd just leap the fence and just jump into the playground and just spontaneously start playing.
Oh, yes. So we had this playground of a school on our way between our studio and where we all were living in Poland. Yeah. And I think it was Parker and I that were walking in the back, and I think it was Emzo and staff that are at the front, and we're talking, and suddenly just KiX runs in front of everybody as is already in his zone. It jumps over the fence. And this is, mind you, like 4 in the morning. By the way, this is after a LATAM cast, and he jumps in and starts playing around, jumping around in the playground, and you're like, Michael, never lose that innocence, but also his passion, his love, his youth, all of that was so incredible to see. And obviously for us in that time, it's like, oh, what is he up to now? Let's be honest, this is how it is. But at the same time, reflecting on it, especially when we got older and kind of started taking ourselves a bit less seriously than we did, 3 years ago, it's rejuvenating to think of, what? These are memories that will keep us all young and keep us all happy to have had these experiences, because this was it. It was the 4 Caballeros, the OGs. That's it. That was the beginning. Nobody else was there, and we shared so many moments all together. I mean, what is it, Parker? You remember when we were flying back from Austin? You, me, and KiX. It was an 11.5-hour flight from Austin to Frankfurt, and then to connect back to Katowice, where you were squished between me and Michael, who spent 6 hours talking about Warhammer lore together, and you're thinking, my God, there's no alcohol on this plane, on this flight to drown me.
It was a Frontier or something like that airline. It was one of the budget airlines where everything's like $20. The meal was like 2 slices of cheese. The only movie they had was Avatar. So I would have had to, and there was some guy that watched Avatar 3 times on the flight. And you two are nerding out, and I'm just sitting in the middle being like, I'd like to be anywhere but here right now, just anywhere. But this particular scene. I'm just like slowly just losing it and sliding down. But no, I mean, it doesn't really dawn on you until you start thinking back on it. Like, think about the continents and the countries that we all traveled to, and we were there together.
How many countries in Europe and Canada, the US, we went to Brazil together, we went to Japan together, we went all over the world. And obviously in places, at least, you know, in my experience, like I had double dates with him and his partner and my partner, and we had so much fun going places, exploring places. Like, for example, in Japan, we went to this Alice in Wonderland themed restaurant, and he's an extremely kind and generous person. And you know, he had this surprise for his partner, and it was so cute and touching seeing how much love he had for her, for everybody around him. That's something that just is Michael. He always had love for people that are around him, and he doesn't say much, but his actions always spoke louder than anything would have said. And he spoke loudly. You all heard him casting through all those years, but his actions, they made you feel warm and fuzzy. When he comes up to you, gives you a hug, and tells you, you know, Kassan, I'm so happy to have you as my friend. I've been so lonely, especially in the beginning, like you mentioned, Parker. Like, I felt so alone. I'm happy to just have somebody here that can connect with. You know, that's something that you feel, because we're foreigners in a strange land. You know, strangers in a strange land, and we wanted, you know, to feel this sense of community. And he was there before all of us. And having him, you know, connecting, it felt like something different. It felt like he was already very distant and just needed somebody to hold him and tell him, you know, Michael, we embrace you. We love you for who you are. And we are here to help you become the best that you are. And look at him. The man became an incredible shining beacon in Siege and in esports, celebrated all around it. Like you said, you know, award-winning caster, right, Parker? So it's incredible to see his growth, and I'm so proud to have been part of that, and all 4 of us together as our own family in Siege.
Absolutely, and beautifully put. I think in a lot of ways, while we talked a lot on this broadcast about ways that, you know, we were his cool uncles, I think there's a lot that he taught us as well, about himself, about us, about the game, and everything beyond that. So as much as I would love to just sit here and keep strolling down memory lane, unfortunately in that regard, we've got a couple matches to play, and it just so happens that they're actually pretty damn important. We have not settled all of the teams that will be going to the major in Sweden. There are implications to the Six Invitational on the line. The NA League finals haven't been decided just yet either, and there's a relegation spot that a couple teams are trying to find themselves out of. So, I know that we could talk about this all day. Michael, we love you and we miss you. And thank you to everybody from EUL, and thank you to both of you for coming on and sharing your stories. But Playday number 9 is upon us. Thank you so much for tuning in to the pre-show. But without any further delay, we're going to get the show on the road. We'll see you in a couple minutes. What does it take to call next? Follow us for a deep dive into the Rainbow Six community, breaking down barriers, taking you behind the scenes, and showing what it means to level up.
If you want to get better, try reviewing your game footage. Insights.gg's game capture tool makes recording and reviewing fast and easy. With no lag, automatic recording, and instant highlights, it's never been easier to learn from your gameplay. Try it for free at insights.gg today.
There goes the Goyo shield. Hey, he gets it! Good God! It stares inside of Library, and he's going to continue to tear them to shreds, but he's going to get caught in the crossfire. He gets it anyway. Quad kill for DarkZero. Can he go for 4? He absolutely can. Jarvis, sit down.
Needs to stay alive, and he won't be able to. Oxygen, a huge clutch.
To waste time. He sees the thermite and gets it. What a play from Bosco. With the pistol, takes down Dream. TSM continue on their reign. Every step of the way, they are the obstacle.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the final Playday to close out the season for NAL Season 2, and I can't wait. My name is Velly, and I'm your host, and right next to my boys, Caleb, Jacob, and Jesse. And I'm Jesse. It's our second season that's about to be under our belts. Right behind us, man. How do you feel about closing out today?
I feel good, Val. I mean, there's still so many implications we have to figure out. There's still teams that got to go to Sweden. There's still teams that have to get relegated, the NA Finals. There's so much on the line for today. And it's great to be here in the studio to be able to work the desk and, you know, finish out the season strong.
Right. And also for today, we don't have just 4 matches. We have 5 of them, and there's a real reason why. Let's take a look at the schedule today. And, Jacob, a little bit of your help, man. DarkZero, they're not playing 1 game, they're playing 2 today because this is their road to Sweden.
Yep, we're looking at DarkZero, who needed to play 1 more game than everybody else today because of a couple of issues related to them in Mexico. They had to play 2 games today because they could not play any games in the first week of this stage overall. So during the Super Week, where everyone usually plays 2, they played 0. So that's why you see them on your screen twice here. What this also means is every team is playing today, which is something that we can literally never say about any NAL Playday this year because it was always 9 teams. Now it's based like this.
No bye week and no days off when it comes to this. Let's take a look at the standings because kind of like what we spoke about with the DarkZero, there are so many implications for today. We're talking about going to Sweden for the major, acquiring points for 6 Invitational, but most importantly, Jesse, take a look at the bottom side, man. Beast Coast, Xset, those boys do not want to be a part of relegation at all, man.
No, 3-way tie right now for last. If you finish in that 9th place spot at the end of the stage, so at the end of today, you will have to play relegations against a Challenger League team. Now, Xset lose all tiebreakers in this situation, so they have to be the ones to get more points, get themselves out of the situation. Astralis have tiebreak over Beast Coast, so they're a little bit more safe, but still, this is a really precarious situation. And don't forget Mirage, only 1 point ahead. That's not going to be them a super secure position if everybody else steps up and is able to get some points on the board.
The race to the bottom always super important, but the race to the top, that top 4, we have 2 spots left for the major. We had 3 teams confirmed today. We had Team Vitality, Team Empire, and who was the other team that made it?
The other team that
who
made
else
it,
did we get?
Vitality, Empire, and Rogue.
It was Rogue, that's true. So those 3 teams managed to qualify from Europe today. We still have 2 more spots, and they are the final 2 spots. 14 of 16 teams going right now. SSG, OXG, they're already fine. But Sonics and TSM FTX right now sitting in that top 4 bracket. DarkZero can get 6 points. Woo. Either one of those teams can only get 3, so they need every point they can get to stay ahead of what DZ might be able to do today.
Now let's talk about the first match of the day, DarkZero versus Astralis. This is a name that made me and Jacob just make funny faces because we love saying it, man. Now, there's a lot going on right now, okay? Heading into this game, Astralis, We thought they were going to do well this stage, Jesse, but the thing is, they've been kind of slacking. They're not living up to the potential that we believe in.
Yeah, really rough start to the stage for Astralis. We were thinking they might be in that relegation spot for a long time. Still could today. It's unlikely because they have really good tiebreakers over the other bottom teams. But Astralis really weren't starting off with the greatest stage ever. They had a lot of losses to start off here, but we'll get into the map ban phase. There's a couple of maps that Astralis have sort of been known to favor. Consulate back in the day before it was taken out of the pool was always a good one for them. Obviously, can't go back there. In terms of these maps that we have, though, it'd be nice to see some Bank. Neither of these teams have played it thus far in the stage. It would be a curveball if Astralis want to make a big move here. And DarkZero, don't forget,
it's still alive,
are a team that that really need these points too because they want to make that major. It's a super important one for them. Vil is an interesting band to come out because DarkZero used to be so good at that. It was a really strong one until they got upset by Xset. We'll see if it's a bank though.
Come
last
on.
two maps.
Give it to me. It's the last Playday, baby.
Bank.
Let's go!
There we go.
This is a big one. Again, neither of these teams have played this map before. DarkZero are going to be coming in with some new strats. Astralis as well. They've had weeks to prep for this, so I'm excited to see how it goes.
I remember watching DarkZero play this back at the Milan finals, and even since then when they had Clash and they would put it right in front of Janitor, it was Mint. He played it all the time, and he was a nuisance, so I want to know what they can do. Now it's back in the comp pool.
All right, fellas, it's the final play day. The players are ready. The lobby is just about ready to hit that start button, but down the line, we're going to go through predictions for the final play day. Starting with you, Jesse. You're going to Bank. Do you have your money on DarkZero, or are you going with Astralis?
It's hard to judge Astralis. We didn't get to see them yesterday, but DarkZero looked so good in their matchup. I've got to go with DZ for this first game.
Somehow they were able to eclipse a team like OXG, who are really, really good with what they do defense-wise, but DarkZero kind of saw through that on their attacks, which was our biggest criticism of them so far. And if you have to compare Astralis to OXG, I think OXG is the better team, and they still lost to DarkZero yesterday, so I'm going to give it to the boys in purple.
With such a big game on the line for DarkZero, 1 of 2, and if they win these two, then most likely they're going to Sweden. We're going to see if they'll be able to pull this out against Astralis. So let's send this over to the casters. Blue and Stokes, take it away.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to the final day of the season here for the NAL, regular season anyway. I've got Stokes with me on the cast, of course, and we're very excited to be jumping into this matchup in just a couple of moments here. DZ going up against Astralis. The big story here, of course, is DZ still trying to climb the leaderboards here and attempt to get themselves into a top 4 position as they have 2 games to play today and 2 chances to net themselves those points.
Yeah, absolutely. Large implications in place for DarkZero today, and some exciting matchups to be had, especially up against Astralis. We've been expecting quite a bit out of them, but they've just been lackluster all stage long, John, and we really don't know what necessarily happened. It seems like Astralis picks up Disrupt, and then they fall off a cliff. We've really wanted to see them get back into the swing of things, but it just has not happened yet. Could start today, but, you know, it's really up to what DarkZero has in store for us.
We did end up seeing here, and we have our major stakes on the screen, by the way, here. Like we said, with DarkZero winning, unfortunately, it's inconclusive right now how this wins, but if Astralis managed to take either a normal win in regulation or even a win in overtime, that will guarantee the Sonics their own position going to the major. And that's what we're focusing on here today. Is obviously it's our last play day, as we're going to be locking in these slots, and as well slots for the NA finals also. Very, very important for both of these teams. We do have our community poll to show you guys as well. We want you to know between NJR and Jano, who've been huge for their teams this stage, who will show up and perform today between those 2 players.
Oh, that's a really tall task right there, John. I honestly don't know. If I had to choose myself, I'd have to say NJR, especially with how he was playing yesterday. DarkZero looks so dynamic in their play, and with NJR in that, you know, forward position, playing more of that entry role and getting a lot of these opening frags for DarkZero, I think he's got what it takes to really take it to them here on Bank. But speaking of the map, that's even more exciting to talk about, especially when you talk about Troy Canadian himself and his history here on Bank. But luckily enough, John, we do not have to wait a long time. DarkZero versus Astralis starts now.
I think this is the map where the very popular clip of him from SI 2020 came from, right? Where he was, I got the worst gun in the game.
I'll be honest, I can't remember if Bank was in the pool at that moment in time. I think that's right after it got taken out. It might have. What I remember, though, is the Evil Geniuses setup that they usually play around Marble Stairs. But either way, we'll see what DarkZero have in store for us here. We're already getting into the ban phase, folks, and we're going to be starting off with a Thatcher ban.
Thatcher, again, lining pretty well with the meta that we have been seeing, even though it is a newer map. The meta aligns pretty well
still. The meta of 6 years.
Yeah, the meta of just knocking him out whenever you want to. Once again, Thatcher 2 universally useful due to his ability to knock out, or well, previously knock out, but more recently disable devices, and we'll see Maverick followed up there. So no direct wall takedown abilities here for the attackers.
So what does DarkZero want to do here? A ban that I would love to see, and one that you guys probably want to see at home as well, is KiX come out here because of the hatch play that goes on around this map. And with Thatcher out as well as Maverick, it's going to make things very difficult for DarkZero on this offense. They're actually going to remove Mozzie instead. So that's obviously going to play into the hand of that deniability. And Mozzie best in the game on the patch that we're playing on when it comes to that because of how potent the Roni is, as well as just everything else he has in his kit. It's going to be Astralis to take out KiX instead.
Yeah, KiX will follow that one. And just to clarify, folks, we are not playing on the most recent patch. We are going to be playing on the one before that. The reason being, we wanted to keep the competitive meta relatively the same spot as it had been throughout the rest of the stage. We didn't want to introduce a major change like that for the final 2 Playdays. That's why we are staying on that older patch. Anyway, getting into the action here now. It looks like it's going to be a basement start for the Astralis roster here, bringing, of course, the expected operators, specifically the castle there, to be able to knock out and, more importantly, limit the attacker's capability to get in so easily, but they'll obviously have immediate counters for that in Sledge, and quite a few of the other operators they'll be bringing here too.
Yeah, this is actually going to be a pretty interesting offensive half for both of these teams. Canadian's going to go in for a 6-pick here onto the Monty, and you might be asking yourself why necessarily, but honestly, it makes sense. I mean, looking across the board right now, especially, taking in part what these bands are going to do to bank, this is going to make it where the hatches open almost instantaneously, and they can get any wall that they want. So it's going to be up to the defense to try and really get in the face of the offense, and this is what Canadian's going to stop with Monty. You cannot try and get in Monty's face. It's not possible. He's constant pressure, and the moment that you stop, paying attention to him, he's more than likely going to slide that shield and try and kill you. So it's constant pressure that Canadian can, emit onto Astralis. They'll have to respect that, as well as all the things that can be going on with these walls, as well as these hatches.
So let's take a look here. If anything crazy is going to be coming out from Astralis. Not looking like it, though, as pretty much the usual holds are going to be set up for a basement play, although obviously this is going to be a new iteration of the map. A lot of the core elements of the design of this map have remained relatively the same. It's upstairs and a couple other areas where we've seen teams set up, and this is going to be a great fallback position here for Astralis here. Lots of room to fight out in square office, and then of course they leave the hatch open, so they have the transition route to go back down, and I believe they've done it for both of the hatches as well, so that's 2 options of escape routes here for the Astralis members if things go awry in this more aggressively pointed play.
All right, now the real question is what's going to be the call here from DarkZero? They'll have to get some very serious intel on this mid-floor, and more than likely will be looking to push into the actual site. Now, this is going to have to be a cautionary tale for DarkZero, mostly because of the hatch play that can come through for Astralis, especially around this bottom square area. They'll have to be cognizant of that because they can definitely run into a lot of problems here with J90 currently inside of Archives here. So looks like Eclipse as well as Canadian actually motioning up to the bottom of square here. Eclipse actually down low. He'll be popping open the wall here soon. And Astralis, it's up to them to try and get in the way now and thwart DarkZero's plans, but it seems like they have so much control in this space already.
Going to see Eclipse start to drone his way forward and support the position from Canadian. The same will be said for NJR here as they work very quickly to open up that first reinforced wall, blocking themselves out from server. It's not going to obviously block them anymore, but what we will start to see is the Toxic Babes coming in from Astralis here. Retro chucking those out is not going to be able to take this down to too low of a point in the round, so ultimately this is just delaying things for a couple more seconds and buying additional time for Astralis to rotate into position. That's not the only thing that Astralis is trying to do, though. We can see over here inside of the Archives, you've got a position maintained by J90 where he could very easily pinch against that server pressure downstairs. However, he's going to need to find a way to initiate upon it, and that's going to be the difficult part from the position he's currently playing. You can see the silhouettes from DarkZero. They're set up on top square as well, so aggression in overall from Astralis is going to be very, very difficult to throw out on the map right now.
Smokes out from DarkZero inside of sight, but this is all just a baiting gesture from them as of right now, trying to get rid of all of these nitro cells down low and make things a little bit easier when it comes to the plant attempt. Remember, DP Fire still has one of those nitros as well, so he could play spoils to the situation overall. And unless Astralis have something else to say about this, especially with J90 still around this archive space. Canadian will start the plant off, and this is going to be very easy for him, especially with that shield on his back. Almost impossible to try and stop him at this point unless they have an explosive. It's going to be Eclipse to try and pop that off as Iconic tries to hop inside and get something done here, but it's not going to really get too much done. Canadian will be next up to try and move forward and find some info for the remainder of his team, but just look at how much time they've had. DarkZero really patient inside of that mid-round as well, waiting to see what Astralis' next move could have been, and they've capitalized on it beautifully. Now it's up to Eclipse to try and get this case down.
Astralis now trying to find someone to wait out the aggression here. We're going to see Shuttle push forward, but he has no angle on the planter, so that will go down pretty quickly. Panda as well finally cuts off the flank from J9. Oh, Shuttle will get one for himself, but Hyper quickly course corrects and leaves Retro all by his lonesome here on the smoke. Out of Toxic Babes as well. Had an opportunity to chase down at least one of the members of the squad there, but now he's put himself between a rock and a hard place as he tries to work himself to the top of blue. Once again, no targets visibly present, so unfortunately, he will get himself knocked out, and we'll see the round go swiftly over towards DarkZero.
I really like what Astralis was going for overall there on that mid floor, but the thing is that it was so abusable by DarkZero around square, and that's immediately what they went for. They push Canadian in through dirt with Eclipse. They get control of server, push him up to the top of blue stairs, and start taking control of that entire space because they know that hatch is open and that more than likely someone's going to come over there to try and prevent them from getting these tasks done inside of server and putting these plants down. So what do? They put Pambazoo up the top of square, and it's almost impossible to try and fight him inside of that space, especially with the planters around there. It's a very protected area, and you're already fighting down on the angle as well. So it's just a very, very difficult thing overall. But hey, guess what, guys? We're going to have a tech pause here, and if you guys were with us yesterday, you know what that means. Sounds like story time to me, John. Do you have any? I'll open the floor up to you. Do you have a good kick story?
Not off the top of my head, unfortunately.
Not off the top of your head.
If you've got one ready to go, then
oh man,
I
listen,
think I'll leave it to you here.
Listen, I've got a pretty solid one. Do you want to? I tweeted about this already for those of you guys that follow me on Twitter, but I'll say it again because it's a pretty good one. The first time that I ever got to stack in ranked with Kickstar, we played a couple of games. I did decent, guys. I did decent. Now the thing that I messed up is I had recently watched EUL, and I'm going to blame Virtus Pro for this because I watched one of them torch the wall open on Oregon Attic, and they did it in a triangle instead of like the regular just line across the top and line across the bottom. And I was like halfway through the Mav torch, and Michael looks at me and he goes, "What the hell are you doing?" And I was like, I saw this on EUL, like Virtus Pro just did this, and he was like, "Yeah, nah, Stokes, you're not the math, bro. You're off. You're done. You're done. You're done." And I was like, oh, okay. So
you've been demoted.
Dude, I got demoted to drones.
Oh,
I got demoted to drones. And for those of you that know me, I'm an Ash Yeager main, man. That's like all I'm good at. That's it. I can only shoot people. No, I'm just joking. But I really did get demoted to drones, though. It was a humbling moment. And after that, I was like, wow, Kickstar really just told me that I need to get better at the game. That's so sick. Like,
all right, ladies and gentlemen, we are in the process of rebuilding the game at the moment. For those of you who didn't catch it, we unfortunately had our observer crash out there at the end of the round, so we just had to really quickly reset things so we can get back into the game. And obviously, that round will still stick. DarkZero is going to be at a 1-0 lead once we do jump back into the game, and we're pretty much ready to start as far as I can see. So we'll be good to start things off in just a second and get ourselves back into bank to see if Astralis can give us a bit of a different flair. Either again inside of that basement site where the strategy was good, they just didn't have enough aggression to fend off the play, or if they'll decide to switch things up and go for a different site. We're going to be finding out now, folks, as we're heading back in game.
Yeah, you really got to consider strategy when you're playing up against Canadian as well, because, you know, he's someone that's extremely malleable inside of the mid-round with his team, and he's not scared to kind of just wait and see what's going to happen throughout the round before he makes his move. So, you know, it's just fantastic IGLing from him, especially inside of that first round to, you know, really get an idea of what Astralis wanted to do with that mid-floor and adapt around it. That's why you saw that square control and everything, because they knew what the overall play was inside of the kitchen area, or rather the open area in general. And so they knew that in order to avoid that entire space, you know, they don't need to necessarily take the back of the basement. I mean, if you look overall at the structure of the basement, because it has not changed in the slightest minus the elevator, there's only one hatch that you have to worry about, technically speaking, inside of the site, and you can defend that from planting where they planted. That's why they had Canadian just simply oversee the rotate hole and then worry about square up top, because that's necessarily the only hatch that you actually have to consider when you're going for a plant like that.
So for Astralis here, we'll see as the strategy is going to remain somewhat similar in that the fallbacks will be left open completely for the team to try and play into. Away from that, though, that means DarkZero more than likely going to be able to execute in a very similar fashion also. But what will Astralis change up? How will Astralis potentially add more aggression into this play here? As you can see again, those rotates still opened up into archives here. So they'll be trying to put that additional pressure onto square, but might run into the very same problems before. Panda is able to maintain that top square position and fend off most of this aggression. In addition, that would also come out possibly from the break room there too, if they're able to swing forward, but the castle barricade will be blocking that one off. Pretty light defense over here inside of the red hall. Not going to see a huge amount of focus on that initially from Dark or
Hyper,
from Astralis.
what are you shooting? Can somebody find Hyper, please? Can we find Hyper? What is this guy shooting? He's literally shot half of his magazine. Is he just like breaking every door across bank right now?
I think he's getting all the stuff in the back here.
Dude, he shot 100 bullets in the first 30 seconds. Like, I don't know what he's trying to get at, but hey, I mean, he got the top square door open though. So again, it looks like we're going to be using very similar strategy to what DarkZero went for last time. Worry about top square, trying to get a lockdown on the bottom of square, and watch that hatch, making sure Astralis cannot push forward actually into them. And oh man, Canadian, what a shot.
Nice entry from Canadian there, catching the fact that they were not watching out for the side hallway inside of square. As a result of that, is going to leave Iconic somewhat exposed in the castle, out of the play here, inside of the second round. As again, he will falter, and that will leave DarkZero with quite a bit of comfortable control upstairs and around the square area as they were able to negotiate in the previous round.
Very strange there as well, just because that really seems as though the only area for him to consider with the castle barricade and everything there, and just to oversee that is just very, very strange. But either way, DarkZero are going to get away with the bag there, and that's going to force Astralis down off of that mid-level. And look at the time. Again, folks, DarkZero have done such a bang-up job of this throughout the game thus far, and even DP Fire will actually have to end up giving up marbles. So really, what can they do here now? Because this is more than likely going to be very similar circumstances. Obviously, DarkZero don't have the Monty this time around. They have Canadian on the Yana, like we saw earlier with him getting that frag onto Iconic. So it could be a little bit of a change up here, and honestly, more than likely, that's what we will get. They're really starting to work on these hatches. You can see Hyper will be popping the E2 hatch here. This Astralis, they're not going to be allowed to work that mid-level anymore.
See for Astralis. Trying to get a little bit more aggressive here, specifically on the inside of Garage. DP Fire obviously won't be finding much there, as DarkZero have no reason to put pressure on that point of the map at this point in the round here. They're still working very much on that same transition they did in the previous attempt, although it is going a bit slower this time, only working on getting open the hatches here, or rather the wall, with about 40 seconds remaining, meaning that they're going to have to go forward pretty quickly with the overall plant execute, as they don't have a lot of excess time to try and figure out what exactly Astralis is trying to work against them. Astralis, meanwhile, once more, no direct contestation against what we're seeing from DZ at this point, mainly because they can't do it. It's going to be futile if they try to push themselves out against these positions from DZ, because they are going to be too well secured and it's too choke point heavy. Canadian, in the meanwhile, going to be moving forward here over inside of Open and checking things out to see what exactly he can find down below. More importantly, if any players are going to reveal themselves, but nothing showing up just yet here. Retro will be the first kill to be picked up as he takes down NJR. With less than 4 seconds left, unfortunately, DZ are just not going to have the capability to negotiate themselves into this site in time, so Astralis will take the rebound and tie things up at 1-1.
Yeah, we reached a very strange moment there for DarkZero. I really like the idea that they had initially there, but it feels like the commitment overall just really wasn't there. You know, Pambazoo trying to excuse me, Pambazoo trying to get down marble stairs very quickly there at the end. They mostly wanted to try and flood while the plant was going down, distract Astralis on two ends, get the frags, but that is definitely not how things ended up going. The plant was going down for quite some time, and Canadian felt the need to actually drop down the hatch, which is exactly what the plan should have been overall for the whole team, but just no one really backing up the play overall, and they're going to lose quite a few bodies trying to commit to that. So DarkZero lose their first round on offense after Astralis picked things up, but not necessarily inside of the strategy on that mid floor. That was, I mean, it was just very lackluster overall. A big pick there by Canadian that they just really couldn't translate throughout the rest of the round.
Very much the case. So that will finally force the move from Astralis. We're going to see them go on to their second site, which will be upstairs on the second floor here. They'll be holding control of CEO. A little bit more of a spread out hold here, but at the same time should be a bit less complexity when it comes to the vertical play for Astralis, as they don't need to work it so heavily as they were doing on their basement hold. For DZ as well, this means a lot of control needing to come in towards the square area on the top side of it as well. Not to mention the repel pressure they'll need to put on the actual site, and in addition to that, maybe a little bit from the front doors too, as we've seen that change up quite a bit. The defenders do have a bit more of a way to fight back against that type of pressure now, so it might not be the way that DZ want to go here. We'll find out though in just a few seconds. Astralis are finishing their setup.
I will indeed, but the big thing here is that Canadian's going to be back onto the Monty, and honestly, I really like this pickup. You guys saw how influential it was inside of the first round. Yeah, didn't have to really kill anybody, but just him being there allowed the plant to go down, as well as a lot of the pressure around that server area to go off without a hitch. I mean, who else are you going to have check bottom square without no risk, right? So having him back in here is going to allow them to play around this top floor pretty easily, especially around E3. They're going to be able to use him to clear out that space and really keep an eye on that, as well as the janitor closet as well. He'll be able to keep a nice little peep sight line in there and see exactly what's going on without really any risk to his person. So should be interesting how they're going to try and implement him throughout the round. But you can already see for Astralis upstairs, this is going to be actually pretty pretty rudimentary overall. We're going to have DP Fire playing checkers, Shuttle inside of the E3 elevator. This is a position that back in the day, if you guys used to watch Laxing and OXG on this map Wreck, this is a very, very common spot that we see Laxing play, as well as quite a few other players just to try and manage this hallway here. And it's going to be really good for Shuttle as well because he has that hatch to escape from, as well as those mute jammers around the double wall to his left. So a big assistance here for him, and he'll more than likely be able to play this space for quite some time unless somebody has something to say about it.
Fire waiting for an opportunity to strike, and he's got the support from Shuttle just around the corner here. Shuttle quickly checking out the echo cams to make sure there's going to be no threat above TP Fire's point of view. Gives the call out for him so he can face check it, and will once again as well make sure that nothing's going wrong there. In the meanwhile, DarkZero still working on getting that initial control. They need to push themselves into the building. You can see a reposition coming out from NJR now. Panba still trying to put pressure on the Banana players also, but so far unsuccessfully. Now we see the smoke continue to hold things off as the Toxic Babes will start to be deployed on that front spiral staircase, preventing the ascent from Canadian and the rest of the team to move closer here. Retro still ready as well, actually fending off the repel play that's going to be coming out against him. Got to be careful. This is really the story for a lot of the members of Astralis right now here, as they're still trying to maintain more aggressive positioning. They have to be careful. If they step 2 or 3 steps in the wrong direction here, that's going to go more than likely into the view of one of the repelling players, and that's exactly how DarkZero get the advantage they need to take the site, but they've been unable to leverage it so far inside of this round here, meaning that they're looking down a very similar situation as they had in round 2, where they're going to have to force the issue in the final 45 seconds, and they may not have the defensive utility clearance to properly do that. Here we go. First issue is they try to face check DP Fire. He wins out that fight. Doesn't get the confirmation, though, so Eclipse will actually trade onto him. Eclipse goes down as well a second later. Now the Shuttle's able to jump into the fight, but still an opportunity to revive at least Hyper, getting him back into the engagement. You're going to need to see that happen from Canadian, though, and he's a little bit busy trying to keep his own life alive. So what exactly do DZ do here?
It's a hard question, my friend, and with 20 seconds remaining, I'm assuming we're going to get it pretty quickly. Astralis, it's been patient throughout this round that has paid off so heavily for them. DarkZero trying to go for a play around Banana, but finally NJR, he'll get something done here as Canadians committing to the plant, but Hyper will go down finally. Believe he bleeds out on the floor. In a beautiful cover thus far, but Astralis are going to get away from it. Canadian, though, side of the 1 versus 3 now with the Monty. They just need to team up, and this is going to be the most straightforward thing ever. Yes, you got the Yokais in, got the shots down. Canadians done and dusted, and Astralis take the lead for the very first time here on Bank.
Astralis, once again, these passive holds, these
iconic,
these stoic setups that they tend to go for on these, at least the later 2 rounds we've played out so far, have been panning out brilliantly for this squad, as DZ is struggling to get their footing on the ground, let alone moving it up to the 2nd floor. And on top of that, no real entry pressure coming out from DarkZero inside of these past 2 rounds, which has just made it a stalemate until the final few seconds, where again, since no defensive utility is being used in the process of this stalemate, they're able to win it out through that, and obviously the positions they still maintain from the first 2 minutes.
Yeah, you know, I really feel as though the game plan there for Canadian and DarkZero was get their initial setup going inside of lobby, get the angle set up for E3, and just hold on to that for some time. See if anybody's going to try and push into you. They were very, very patient around Spiral there. They didn't want to try and overcommit themselves, but obviously as time starts to dwindle, you get pressure on the offense. It's your job to push into the site, and so they do so. But my biggest gripe with that whole thing is that they had zero information as to where anybody was. The only person that they know really was inside of a space was Shuttle, and they also oversaw that after Hyper had already gotten down. So, you know, they just had way too many blunders at the top of that staircase, and it's going to be way too difficult to try and get out of that. I mean, really, their only saving grace is if NJR gets maybe 2-3 kills inside of the actual site. Otherwise, that round is 9 times out of 10 going to go to the defense.
DarkZero unfortunately has relied on that in at least 2 instances so far here and has not panned out. So curious to see if we will get a bit of a different flair out of them. Obviously, Astralis are going to be tested to a decent degree here, too. They've gone for open for their 3rd and final site before they more than likely rotate back down to the basement for the final hold, or one of the final 2 holds. There is an opportunity for them to try and go tellers here also if they feel the basement hold's a bit riskier, considering how DarkZero was able to win it on the 1st round. But given the way the 2nd round went, I don't think they'll have too many issues with confidence there. Anyway, we got DZ out on the board again, and they're going to be focusing on maintaining or establishing those early positions here, as we see quite a few of them working their way up the rappels now to start seeing if there's going to be any 2nd floor roam game being played out here by Astralis.
Now, there's always something I love to mention when we do end up playing this site here on Bank, and I haven't got to mention for quite some time, but I'll do it here today for you guys, because I had a conversation a long time ago with Zeronic, and he actually talked to me about this bomb site here on Bank, and he pointed this out. I always think it's a very interesting thing. This is the only site on the entire map that you can transition through a hatch into the site as well as out of the site. So you have a lot of different layers that you can actually play through this map if you're playing this site, because you can play the top floor as well as escape and make a rotation through that basement. There's so many options for you, and it really leaves the playbook wide open as to what this defense can really do. And for Astralis, it's going to be a really big boon for them, especially with the likes of like J90 who could possibly go on the roam here, and Iconic with that Valkyrie. We could see some really big plays coming through that basement. But as for DarkZero, they're going to be starting off in very similar straits. They're going to go right to the top of Square and start clearing this building.
We can see DarkZero, specifically NJR, already starting to put pressure on these upstairs positions, but again, no one revealing themselves from Astralis. They've been aces at masking themselves here inside of the first minute or two and avoiding any and all fights that they would normally be taking against DarkZero, as we saw in the first round, where unfortunately they lost far too many players far too quickly and couldn't defend the site inside of a late round scenario there, mainly due to, again, how strong of a setup DarkZero had for themselves up until that point. Astralis now has taken bit of a note from that page and is doing very, very similar things, but we will see them lose the first player inside of round number 4 here. J90 is going to get knocked out. Not confirmed just yet, but there we go. NJR quickly sledges open the top-down angle, and we'll finish things off.
He is heat-seeking with these openings right now, just able to find him. And that down was already through, so pretty straightforward for them to get that initial pick, and that's actually going to take away quite a bit of utility from them. Then NitroCell could have came up huge, as well as J90 being one of the most influential players on Astralis right now. Shuttle being the, well, tied for that, actually, 3-0-1 currently, as he hasn't died just yet, and that's a huge thing from what we saw from yesterday, so we'll see if he can continue to snowball this into an even bigger advantage. Iconic, though, end up burning the NitroCell here for the bottom square hatch as he pushes himself up blue. Knows that more than likely people are inside of this space as Retro, trying to fight back and forth there. And should be a fairly straightforward for Iconic. He'll pick up one. And again, this is the danger of that basement and not being cognizant of these stairwells.
Great aggression finally starting to show itself from Astralis here as they need to once again shut down the aggressive play, which is starting to breach the veil on their site. But with 15 seconds left, DarkZero need to speed things up as well. Thankfully, it's going well, at least for Panba. NJR getting another kill off the frag grenade. Panba finishing things off, but we still have Shuttle on the back flank here as he's able to take down Hyper, trying to limit the time. Now he's going to try to go for the plant denial, but I don't think he'll have the capability to do so. NJR gets it onto the ground, and now it's Shuttle versus the world for a retake in the 1v2.
Ooh, so very risky here for Shuttle, especially with the rotation that he had to make all the way across. And oh, what a shot! The oopsie-doopsie back and forth puts NJR on skates, practically on ice on that one, and now it's down to Pambazoo to try and oversee this bomb. They knew where he was. Obviously, Shuttle being 3 armor here makes him quite loud, and yeah, he's got the red pings, and oh, he's also got the case in his hands as well. This is going to force Pambazoo to step up, and oh, this is going to be a game of musical chairs, folks. Back and forth, who can possibly win on this advantage? He knows where he is. Pambazoo, he takes so much heat, and Shuttle, he is electric today, folks, but Pambazoo finally gets him shut down, and the timer just not playing into the defensive hand, and finally, DarkZero able to get back on the board.
Yeah, unfortunately there for our last player alive on Astralis, no time remaining to continue playing that peaking game there. Had to stick the diffuser at that point, which is why you see him staying on it. Even if he let go and got the kill, would have been enough time for the counter defuse. He still would have lost the round there. So unfortunately, just has to take that headshot in stride and hope that his opponent didn't peek him in time, which did not happen. So DarkZero tie us up very quickly at a 2-2 scoreline, and we are going to see Astralis return to what they've already claimed for themselves a few rounds back, as they'll be going for the basement hold next. We're not going to see the castle used, though, which is used quite heavily to block off some of the more standard angles these teams would push towards, and instead, Pulse will be brought into the play. Attackers as well will go for a 6 pick of their own, as they'll bring a Capitao in the mix.
So this should actually be extremely helpful overall to Astralis' game plan on this bottom floor. They've already won this one time, but the other loss was honestly fairly straightforward for DZ. They really didn't have to do all that much. They just had to make sure that the square hatch was watched, and they basically had a free plan, but that was in part because of the Monty play from Canadian, which obviously he's not on that once again, and the last time Astralis actually won this, that was one Canadian dropped that Monty as well. He picked up the Yana. This time around, he will be running the Capitao, and luckily enough for him, there are no my discs to catch any of those. So all of these are going to land true as long as he's not launching it into an Aruni gate or some other crazy thing happens. So that should make it fairly straightforward for these micro smokes to get in, and he should be able to prevent some space as well with those fire bolts. And overall, this is going to make it kind of easy for DarkZero to take control of that space and get that plant down in time, since the timers on those smokes and as well as the fire bolts match up quite similarly to your plant time. So, you know, it's very, very straightforward for DZ inside of this one. It's just about this opening minute and what happens with possibly Iconic getting some helpful picks through that cardiac sensor.
Iconic to continue to hold from that bottom position until he starts to see the presence work its way in from DZ, which obviously they're still building up the courage as well. They need to do some drone work here on the first few seconds of play just to make sure that they're not going to run into anything they didn't expect to see. We've also got this very aggressive hold from J9O sitting at the top of blue stairs too, which the call will be given from Iconic for him to make plays out here once DarkZero start to work their way in. DarkZero obviously are going to take their time moving into lower square when you consider the complexity of the setup that's currently come out from Astralis. They need to make sure they fully understand it before they risk throwing players at that barricade and potentially into a losing gunfight as they've had struggles with in previous rounds. You've already seen, though, DarkZero is no stranger to taking their time with the situation. At least in one instance here, has had no problem taking pretty much no aggressive actions up until the final minute or so. So once again, it's looking like we're facing down a very similar situation for DZ as they waste out the first minute or two here, just establishing top and first floor spots before they make the transition down.
Yeah, this is a great change of pace here for Astralis on this site, because this is going to allow them to have quite a few more bodies as well as hold on to control of a lot of these spaces in which DarkZero almost needs in order to achieve what they want to, especially around blue stairs. You can see what they've done with this space. Double gates as well as that gate to watch into sight as well. So we'll likely just have line of sight for Retro and J9 if they do have to rotate back down and have to end up helping with that bomb site space. So, well, besides that, we're likely just going to be holding onto blue for quite some time. And this is where the debacle starts for DarkZero, because past that is going to take a hard entry and quite a few frags in order to open up enough space on that B site. This is usually the most defended site when it comes to the basement. That's why we see a lot of people prioritize A and just have B as an afterthought.
We'll continue to see DarkZero look for an insertion point. And Canadian has apparently found one. Hyper as well. Everyone just dropping in from the hatches, and it's an absolute execution. 4 direct kills from DZ. No response from Astralis, and it's left J9O alone outside of the site. He cannot stop this play. It's going down in lockers as far as I can see here, and it'll be confirmed in a moment. J9O is powerless to do anything against the rush from DZ, and Canadian will seal the deal for DarkZero to push ahead yet again.
And that's how that round with Yana should have went, right there. Everyone drops, they know what the task is, and not only that, but they do it in unison. That's the biggest thing. Astralis, they get overwhelmed, and that's the beauty of it when you call something like that. When you have something like a full court press happen to your team, the comms immediately get flooded because everyone sees something. So there's just chaos. Everyone has to try and win their gunfights. You're trying to calm to your teammates, and then all of a sudden everyone's dead except J9O, and it's like, okay, what's he going to do inside of a 1 versus 4? Or actually, no, it was a 1 versus 5. It was a flawless round. So, like even what do you do with that? You know, especially from the position that you're playing inside a server. Bank, especially on that basement site, that's super difficult to retake. There's really not any verticality to use. It's just straight up gunfights across the board. And I don't really see, as good as J9 is, 5 gunfights in a row going his way.
Bit risky, of course, from DarkZero. Should we see those initial gunfights not go their way, things could have gone a very, very different direction, but thankfully for them, pretty much every single one of them did so. So it ended up being a fairly one-sided round in their favor once the execution actually started to work its way out. Once more, though, Astralis is just going to immediately switch the site. They are not too concerned with playing that one out again, considering they've had the most issues on it, so it's time to go back upstairs for this hold, where they've already locked this down once, and they're going to look to do it nice and easily for a second time here to end out the half and tie us once again at a 3-3 scoreline.
All right, now the big concern here, folks, for Astralis fans at home is the change-up that they're going to have on this top floor, because I'll tell you, it's a necessity, especially going up against DarkZero with Canadian. You don't want to be doing extremely similar things to the last time, especially positioning-based wise. So personally, I'm going to be very worried about shuttle here. Unless we see DarkZero go across, then obviously they're going to know that he's in that space, but he's still going to have a chance to contest the elevator hallway. I'm just worried about him getting caught out, especially with things like grenades available to DarkZero where they can possibly abuse that hatch from underneath, because you guys remember our explosive conversation yesterday. Pay attention to how many frag grenades these teams are using, because DarkZero right now, they've got 6.
been more and more prevalent inside of the meta to bring more and more of those, as we started to see the utility mitigation go away quite a bit, or at least limited in its capabilities. So teams are starting to rely more and more on that bit of utility, and as you said, starting to bring more and more frags into the lineup, with 6 currently in the pockets of DarkZero, which is a big contrast to what we used to have, where it was very flash heavy due to the utility dump meta, where you would need to bring like 12 plus flashes just to have a chance.
Just
Now
to be able to use Ash's breaching round and Zophia's impacts, and you had to have those two, otherwise it was impossible.
So we've changed up the meta quite a bit since then. It's cool to see, of course, as we're still obviously bringing quite a bit of the old style there, at least on Panva, so we'll bring the flashes in to still dump out what remains, of course, of the utility gadgets and their ability to mitigate things like the frags and the flashes here. We're going to see that pressure put immediately onto DP Fire here, and he's very, very aware of the risk that potentially nade dumps coming out against him. And
Remember what I said about positioning and that they're gonna know where you are. They didn't drone that, guys. There's no drone in there to fight DP Fire.
He played this spot. He played literally this exact spot the last time they played the site too. So they're gonna know he's here. He was one of the biggest pain points for actually getting access to Banana too. But yeah, these nades, what are you guys doing here? They're not hitting where they need to as DP Fire continues to crawl his way around his own death, making sure that he stays alive. Obviously, he's taking some heat. Don't get me wrong. He's under 50 HP now, but 3, if not 4 frag grenades used to do that amount of damage is not a good trade on utility.
No, not in the slightest. I mean, this is the exact opposite of the NBA right now. These are just bricks being thrown inside of checkers. Very unfortunate for DarkZero, especially because some of those seemed like they should have honestly been doing a little bit more damage than they were really doing. But the big thing there is obviously the different amount of damage that you take according to where it lands on your body. With DP Fire laying prone with his feet out, he's more than likely eating a lot of that shrapnel into his feet. But either way, Canadian's going to swing and he's going to take down DP Fire inside of checkers. You got a lot of people around this space, including Canadian, who actually doesn't get the next kill. It's going to be Hyper instead, but Iconic comes up from square and Shadow comes up with a big one as well. Gonna be looking for the hop out here, but it's gonna be Canadian with a double, expecting him to stay alive, but no, it's gonna be Iconic to hop out and take down Pambazoo as well. It's a 2 versus 2, but they know he's gotta rotate all the way over to the service area and get in at the bottom of square. That's gonna leave only J9 on site. He's gonna need some serious assistance and oversight in order to manage this. Remember, also no Nitro Cell on Iconic, so he's gonna have to do something. And J9, what a time to pop off. Beautiful shot on the Canadian, doesn't allow the triple kill, and now it's down to NJR for the clutch.
J9, perfect timing shot on the pre-fire there, takes him out, and Iconic isn't even realized by NJR. He still thinks he's downstairs moving up the steps, but he's way ahead of you there. Has the lineup, has the shutdown, and it's got to be the round going over to Astralis as well, as they tie us up at 3-3, moving into the second half. DarkZero now gets their chance on the defensive side, though, so we'll have to see what Astralis can give us on the aggression.
Yes, indeed. And if you're wondering why Astralis pays that, man, it's for stuff like that right there. What a beautiful triple from him, and a necessity inside of that round overall. I really like the play that they had for the top of square as well. They knew that somebody was going to be managing those windows, so he's taking his time. Iconic worried about what that positioning is outside, waits for the call and makes a calculated play. He knows that no one can try and get that refrag out there, and inside of the 2 versus 2, it's either dedicate to site and try and take out J9, in which he has confidence in, or both of them are more than likely going to rotate and try and take out Iconic at the bottom of square. So I love the call from him. I really like the pickups that he had inside of that one, and for DarkZero, it just came down to a moment where it was fight or flight. They had to make a decision either way, and unfortunately, it just did not go the way that they wanted it to.
Interesting 6-pick going to come out from Astralis. They did have a bit of a different strategy to deal with utility setups coming out from DZ, and that they were going to bring a Flores, but that was swapped at the last second, as DP Fire is going to bring the IQ in instead, an operator that we actually very rarely see nowadays because the new ping system has kind of made her scans a bit of a moot point, but ultimately there are still few situations where you can get use out of her ability to track down these gadgets more specifically through walls and whatnot, so this is going to be a situation where at least Astralis feel it's necessary due to the potential complexity of what DarkZero are going to bring up on their own defensive side, as they've gone for an interesting choice for the first site hole here. They're going to be over here in open area to try and take control of this one and put themselves in the lead once again on this defensive side.
We already saw a pretty unique round happen inside of this space, which ended up going down to that 1 versus 1 where DarkZero were able to get away with it after Pambazoo took quite a bit of damage from Shuttle, trying to manage that case and behind the kitchen counter, but was not capable of doing so. Just did not have the timer on his side and had to end up sticking to it instead. As for Astralis, obviously, this is going to be their first time here on offense, and as John's been talking about, we have IQ along for the ride here, as well as the double hard breach that we've been seeing from DarkZero as well. We'll be bringing J90 and Iconic on the Zoe and Sledge here, so plenty of soft breach potential to try and abuse across the board, but especially on this site, this is something that's going to play pretty well into their hand, especially if they can get J9O upstairs and start abusing some of these angles. But you can see DarkZero pretty primed in their positions right now for any gunfights that they really need, you know, especially these essential ones that could be coming up pretty quick. With Thunderbird in here, this is going to allow them to heal up as well from those, so we could see some interesting engagement soon.
Teams getting very, very close to each other, but at the same time, Canadian getting a lot of info about what's going on down on the inside of server at the moment there. Iconic has moved in, and he's the only one to do so, so there's going to be a bit of a moment of security felt here by DZ, as they know that there's not a lot of pressure in that department. They still need to figure out what's going on upstairs, though, as that's where most of the control from Astralis is pointed towards at the moment, as they've taken this for themselves. Away from that, still continuing to wait out for the first bits of aggression to really start to get into the parts of the map that DarkZeros actually have control over, and this is where Iconic, I think, is going to come into the full. Problem for Iconic is, again, Canadians had full intel on him for quite some time and saw him go up those stairs. So that is immediately going to be given out to the rest of the members of DarkZero. They'll know that for sure. Great pre-fire, though, coming in from DP Fire. Absolutely shreds Panba out of his position deeper on the inside of Archives and Tellers, and that's going to leave Astralis in the pole position here as we go into the last minute of the round.
Well, it's been a while since we had some G8 gameplay inside the NAL, so definitely a breath of fresh air to see now after Astralis get their initial blood here. Iconic going to be looking for more as well as he takes control of the bottom of Square. The rest of DarkZero have some pretty controllable points here, especially around this space inside of Kitchen that they'll more than likely be worrying about, especially after we see this pop in the breaching charge of Iconic. Eclipse currently managing Marble. Has one here, and Canadian will be able to keep an eye on him as to the current positioning. This cardiac sensor, I mean, he's paying off in spades at the moment. So much info coming back to DarkZero, and they'll be able to abuse this insight later on. But the biggest issue right now is that they're being hampered at the stairwell. These are going to be some very serious gunfights that they have to win. Otherwise, Astralis will more than likely be looking to execute onto site very soon. It's going to be Hyper with a big kill here. Eclipse gets taken down. Hyper as well. All of a sudden, it's all down to Canadian. Can he get anything from the Nitro? No. It's going to land on deaf ears, and he will soon falter as well. Astralis claim round 7.
Nitro, unfortunately, giving away Canadian's hold there in the final seconds of the round makes it all too predictable for Panba to work himself over and shut down the last player there. Overall, very, very well played. Takedown of the site setup from Astralis, taking control of all of the surrounding areas and slowly swarming in against what DZ had to hold. Much like our previous rounds as well, relative inaction going up to that final minute there as Astralis needed all that time to figure out what exactly the setup looked like. But when they're ready to execute, they execute in nearly flawless fashion there and are able to take down most of the more surprise positions from DZ without much of an issue.
Now, I would just like to remind you guys that regulation win or overtime win here for Astralis means that the Sonics will be going to Sweden. For DarkZero, it's a necessity to win this one as well as looking forward. If they get past this, they also have to win again later today. So a lot of implications here for them and really a lot of stress to be had as well. That's the biggest thing here is you got to think about the mental gymnastics that DarkZero is going through. You know, they're playing this all right now just for a ticket to be able to go to Sweden. Not even to, you know, get ahead in Sweden or anything like that. That's just to get into the damn tournament.
And the Sonics, of course, will be very, very happy to have that opportunity to
go
back
they're praying on their downfall right now. They're like, Canadian, just blow it down your leg. Oh, you guys, please. I want to see everyone with goose eggs. I'm saying they're probably just like super happy that Hyper picked up that that operator as well with Oryx. They're like, yeah, play Oryx, man, please, thank you.
We saw obviously an interesting performance of the Sonics back in the Mexico major where they had a pretty promising first game, but it just kind of just went downhill.
Latam got him, man. Latam got him good. Fury was just, Furia, I do believe actually was the team that ended up beating them on Coastline, and wow, what a game that one was. So I believe Furia also beat SSG there as well, which was just an insane game. And if you guys haven't seen that one, make sure to go back to the Mexico City Major and watch that. But obviously not right now, as we're already 20 seconds into round 8 here, where DarkZero are trying to find the equalizer.
Going to be a slow process once again, folks, which should be no surprise to you folks at this point, considering especially the DarkZero have gone back to a basement hold here. Now, of course, a little bit risky on that first site choice from DarkZero going towards the open area. So considering that, returning again to one that we're much more used to seeing our teams play onto should be a better sign for them if they're going to have the strategy to win things out here. Astralis, though, still taking their jolly old time. It is going to be upstairs control if they prioritize first. Iconic currently working on droning out the open area to make sure there's not an extended hold. And away from that, DP Fire will probably be moving in to reassure that is going to be under their control in just a second. And we'll see the team start to work more on the descent from that point forward.
There's no way that DarkZero's plan with Oryx right now was wait for Astralis to pop all of these hatches where they're not really, you know, paying attention to all of them at the same time, and then just have Hyper hop up them. You know, that's what it's feeling like, because if you look across the board, all the hatches are reinforced. So obviously Oryx really can't do anything with closed hatches, so it's going to be really up to them to see which one of these hatches will be abusable, and a possibility for Hyper to get a pretty cheeky rotation. To see how that ends up breaking down, though, as Astralis have already found their mark, or at least the space that they want to work from initially. It's going to be inside of server, and at the halfway mark through this round, it's going to be fairly straightforward. The only big deal right now is that Canadian is over in Gold Vault. This is just a Pulse Classic right here. I'll be honest with you guys. This is one that we've been doing all the way since like year 1 on Bank. To sit inside of there, and you can get basically all of server inside of your vision. You can see the far wall that they usually end up blowing up, as well as the bottom of the stairwell, and that's the biggest pieces here. Canadian will be able to tell everyone that, well, Shuttle's currently planning, or he can stop it himself with this, like that. So the diffuser's going to go down, and somebody's going to have to go pick that up.
Canadian, as we are going to see with the Nitro Cell there, stops the initial pressure from Astralis working their way in. But the case now going down to the ground, as you were talking about a couple rounds back. This is a very, very tough site to work yourself into, whether it's a retake or pushing for the outright aggression instead. The good news is, though, wasn't committed outright to the inside, so they can still have Retro move forward, pick it up, and try this again. Man, Iconic is going to take a whole load of shots. They'll be finished off by Hyper. NJR as well will accidentally knock out Canadian as he drifts a bit too close to the Toxic Babes. And that now leaves Astralis in control here. Obviously still going to be down a player compared to what DZ have to offer here, but they've got the plant down, and now they switch their hold. Down one, but we're going to see DZ try to pull off the same thing, as they're going to look to pinch against this post-plant hold from Astralis by working themselves over towards blue stairs. Astralis have considered this, though. We can see DP Fire in position to shut down Hyper. He'll do that quite well. Another one's still going to work himself his way, though, and that's going to be Eclipse that'll also have to take down. Not a whole lot of time left here for DarkZero to get themselves onto the site again, and also not a whole lot of players to pull off the counter defuse, and now none left, as well as Retro and Jane I know get the ceiling kills, and we'll see Astralis push that much closer to a map point.
Poor Smoke there. NJR, I mean, all of the utility that he used, just very lackluster. Not able to really get any damage onto either of the planters, as well as his last smoke falling short as well and actually killing Canadian, which was the only person to actually get preventable utility out into the proper space to prevent the first plant. So just super unfortunate there for DZ, kind of falling to pieces there. And honestly, guys, this is where it starts to get pretty risky. I mean, Astralis, they're 1 round away from getting up and on to match and map point. And that's where things, I mean, for DarkZero, you really want to get as many rounds on the board as you can right now, because that's that only mistake that you're going to be allowed to make for the next 3 rounds. So the more rounds you get, the more opt you are to at least force overtime, or, you know, if you're feeling spicy, 4 rounds in a row does beg you the win.
Right, well, we'll see here if DarkZero can make the run for themselves. Astralis as well, those seem to be really in control, especially of these late round scenarios here, based on the first 2 rounds that we have played out. Unfortunately, DarkZero have been unable to put enough pressure against Astralis as pushes into the site to really fend things off. So as a result of that, we've been seeing Astralis walk through these setups in at least 2 rounds in a row here now, with the first one just being an outright frag fest. This most recent round being much closer, as Astralis did have to lose at least 1 or 2 players in the process of getting their plant down, but DarkZero ultimately did not have enough utility or angle work to be able to stop that plant from going down, and that's obviously when the status of who was controlling the round started to switch up, and that's when we saw Astralis really take control, especially with DP Fire's counterflank position upstairs.
Yeah, well, you know, in the good nature of Rainbow Six, you need some martyrs in order to get things done, and that's just how it is. Somebody's got to take the bullet, man, you know? Whether it be going to find some information or committing to a plant, somebody's got to do the dirty deeds, and that time around, it happened to be Retro as well as Shuttle. So either way, able to get that case down at a beautiful round win. They definitely need it. So now for DarkZero, it's back to the top floor like we'd noticed before. See what they can necessarily do with this space. Canadian especially playing in a pretty unique position here. But just to remind you guys, they did end up changing the top skylights here. So for some of you, this might feel really weird that he's in this space, but I promise you, he is safe unless somebody jumps down the other side with the quick rush from Arbor Stairs that we're all used to, but more than likely they're going to meet an M590 if they do that. So that is actually going to be a space that he can control for some time with that mute gameplay. So we'll see how that goes.
Attackers have located a bomb. We're going to see Hyper pretty much instantly deny the drone that they try to throw into the connector here. So Hyper will still be relatively safe in his new position, just on the other side of it. That does not mean that no pressure is going to work its way in, though. Astralis still have quite a bit built up on this rappel. 3 out of 5 of their players, in fact, currently working from this single angle here, trying to put that additional pressure into the site, and more importantly, trying to knock out these bits of utility that are set up close enough to the window for Astralis to manage them. Away from that, though, it's a usual focus on the top square control, and you can see DP Fire already on the inside. He'll send the Flores' explosive drone towards it to try and knock out some of the utility, still sitting on the other end of that wall right there. But unfortunately, it's going to get jammed as he gets a little bit too close to the mute jammer, still sitting on the other side of that wall, so he'll lose the capability. Oh, what are you doing here? A second one as well getting wasted.
He got a kill, though.
Yeah, at least the first kill ends up going their way. A bit of unweighted aggression comes out from DZ, and he's going to be punished. Panba getting knocked out for that one. But okay, now you've lost some of these explosive drones. I don't know how massively detrimental that'll be to the overall strategy, since thankfully it doesn't look like there's a huge setup remaining inside of the cycle. We'll see that much more clearly here at some point in the next 20 seconds. Astralis is going to begin to be pressured to move in.
I mean, the big thing is that they really didn't try to look into any other options for these Rotero drones either. Just try to bullet right through that opening there, but obviously the mute jammer hampering that quite heavily. Could have also gotten rid of the position here for Canadian on that shield. They do still have one more Rotero drone, but with minimal time, this is looking like Astralis is going to have to go for the execute here. And honestly, this is completely winnable here for DZ, depending on how Hyper does with this. And oh, J9, a beautiful shot. He knows Hyper has to commit eventually and just keeps sending shots down range. And some more beautiful bullets being sent out from J9 deep here into Janitor. Finally, DarkZero start to fight back, but they're just losing bodies too quickly. And Astralis, they're finally coming back onto the board. But DarkZero, they prevented the plant, and now it's up to Canadian, but Retro will find him as well as another inside of the last remaining moments of the round. And Astralis find map point.
Once again, a little bit shaky there on trying to get into the site and actually getting the plant down onto the ground, but it seems the early and mid-round intel gathering from Astralis, their attempts to understand what DarkZero have set up and get information on where all these players are positioned, is paying off in huge dividends by the end of the round. As they're specifically in that situation there, you could see Canadian hiding out in Janitor. It is absolutely no hesitation on the Astralis members moving over there. They knew exactly where he was positioned at and knew exactly how to take him out. And you could see similar things going on from the Repel players as well, catching those transitions when they were made and making sure that the defense was as weak as possible when Astralis moved into the site.
Yeah, it really doesn't seem as though DarkZero is really prepared for the patience of Astralis. They're doing very similar things on their offenses and gaining the initial map control and then waiting to see exactly what happens with the defense with these rotations and such things. I think what I really like is Astralis' attention to detail on the actual site and getting rid of these castle barricades and opening up these, you know, really, really manipulative long lines of sight into the area, because that space up top is so difficult to actually play because there's a lot of stuff that you can just simply get shot through. The couch and all of that inside of the office, completely wall bangable. Like, there's no safe space unless that castle barricade's there, or you find one of those little, you know, brick walls to hide behind like we had with Hyper. So for DarkZero, you know, it's really about trying to get out in front of this and really, you know, get to Astralis, try and get some of these initial frags and see really what they can do with that, because right now the strategy on site is just simply not working out.
Well, let's see here as the pause has come out from DarkZero, but it's coming a bit late here. Astralis is already on map and match point. All they need is one more to seal the deal. It's going to be another basement hold coming in from DZ as they'll try to finally lock down a defensive round on this site. One of the more bunker-focused ones here, so a lot less complexity to the overall gameplay here from DarkZero, but still, if one or two things goes wrong, that's going to be the box being opened up by Astralis, and it'll be the method for how they get into the site and collapse the rest of this defense.
Canadian went downstairs and said, okay, NJR, you're off smoke. All right, you're never again. I've got the smoke, okay? Also, guys, Canadian, 7-7 right now as the IGL. He's doing the most. He's got the team on his back, and he's trying to carry them to Sweden. We'll see if he can get it done, but he's put the others in, positions of power across the board. Pambazoo with the Valkyrie, Hyper on Vigil, as well as NJR coming out with the Alibi. So there's a lot of really good guns in play right now for them, including Eclipse, who really is just a jack of all trades. He can really do anything, and he's more than likely going to be playing down low with Canadian and more of that prevent slot over there inside of Red Hall. But we'll have to see what Astralis want to do with this across the board here. Do they want to go for square, or do they want to go for something similar to what DarkZero did on their last round of attacking this, where they just flooded the site and went for the frags?
We'll be finding out soon here as we've got Astralis out on the board, and as usual, they're going to be taking their time with things in the first couple moments of the round. They do have a little bit of aggression pointed out here from DZ to deal with, most notably an NJR positioned over there towards Banana itself, and not the only one either. Hyper's got a position in J. I believe Panba's going to be holding landing either close to the bottom of blue stairs or somewhere on the first floor. A little hard to tell from the silhouette, but we'll see that a little bit later on. As they want to get in the faces of Astralis here. They want to contest them in the early round, and we'll see if that's potentially going to work for them. NJR already taking a lot of heat, though. He's been reduced down to a sliver of HP here and needs to try and find some way to fight, but more importantly, fall back here. As we can see, he was the player on Banana. Oh, what a flip around from him! Sneaks out into the banister and is able to go right up and find the headshot on Retro. Beautifully played.
That's how you get it done, DarkZero. Retro, he feels like he's tagged up NJR so much that there's no way that this man recommits to an angle. But NJR takes the challenge, and he wins the gunfight. A single bullet was all that was needed inside of that MX4 Storm, but he made sure to send a couple friends. Astralis now have to clear out this top floor and be very worrisome of what they can do going forward, especially because DP Fire's already got some serious damage done to him, and they need to start breaking up a couple of these, very important pieces. But the biggest thing here is, folks, is look at the timer already. We're already halfway through the round, and guess where the bomb site is? It's in the basement. They have to process this entire floor, then get all the way downstairs, and this is what DarkZero, or rather, what Ubisoft, actually, has changed up about Bank. It's a lot easier to go for these extended holds because there's not as many harsh angles for Astralis to get a hold up, even though, obviously, NJR did take some very serious heat inside of lobby.
Now, Iconic does take a more aggressive step forward. Here, we're going to see Eclipse get very close. Trying to knock out another player will not end up finding the successful angle.
Are you getting hot? I'm getting hot.
Yes, DarkZero's waking up, that's for sure, here with their play inside of just this round alone. Now, like we talked about before, they've already moved Shuttle, oh my goodness, as well as Iconic down here to quickly take out the reinforcements on server, but it's not going to matter if DarkZero are able to play this aggression so successfully out from their side. Canadian taking down the hard breacher here in Shuttle. Thankfully, the job of opening things up to get into the site was already done, and now finally things start to turn around for Astralis as Iconic gets the first pick for this squad against Eclipse.
But the time waste is so serious here for Astralis, but they really don't care. Make it a 3 versus 3. We don't care that there's 30 seconds remaining. And oh man, this is one of the best rounds we've had inside of this entire game thus far, folks. If you wanted primetime Sage, oh my god, do you have it? Bambazoo will take down Iconic. Astralis have to hop too. They have to get something done, and it's up to J90. He'll be able to take down Bambazoo, and he's going to flood immediately into B. He's got targets all around him. Hyper will hop in inside as well. NJR still with 1 health as well. J90, he's got to dedicate to the plan, and they know he's inside of the B bomb site. DarkZero survive round 10.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful gunplay coming out from DarkZero inside of that round. The individual gunfights that are won on those clutch little headshots there are what makes up the difference and allows them to push it over the edge, especially considering, despite the struggles Astralis had in those first 2 minutes of clearing out the extended game, they still get into the site and nearly negotiate themselves a plant, but it's not enough again because of the early fights and great positional work being done from DZ in that round.
Now, yesterday when you and I casted SSG, I ended up talking about something pretty seriously for a little while. It was survival rate of Skies. 47% for those of you that didn't know from yesterday. 47% of his rounds he survives. Think about that for a second. It's actually insane. The best inside of the league at it. But this right here shows you the importance of surviving inside of a round of Rainbow Six. Retro is actually the most important piece to the puzzle there. He is Lion with EE1Ds to be able to hold on to DarkZero's positioning while Astralis clears the map. With him dying first, they now have no access to that, and all of DarkZero are able to just continue just running around the map doing whatever they want. And that leads to this, where Astralis constantly have to try and take these gunfights, eventually having to execute on a site. Now, it went pretty well to start, but the biggest thing is you were fighting from a downward position already, and you just got the equalizer. For DarkZero, it's like, okay, yeah, you got 30 seconds remaining. It's still 3 versus 3, and you still have to push us. So, very difficult for them overall, and that's why we're going to see the tactical timeout right now, because DarkZero has switched the game up on them.
Just to remind you guys once again what's going to be on the line for our players playing in this matchup, specifically for Astralis more than anything. If they are able to win this one, regardless of if it's an OT win or a regulation win, they will qualify the Sonics going to the major. At the same time, DarkZero is still looking to ascend into a position where they can qualify for the major itself. They have an extra game today due to the swap of the schedule we did at the beginning of the season due to one of their players getting COVID, and now they have an opportunity to sneak back up. You can see they're at number 5 right now, but they could very realistically end up at number 4 if they win both this match and their final one, and a few other teams falter in the other matches today.
Okay, now this round right here is where I'm going to get a little worried, I'll be honest. I think that this is where things can either go very positively for DarkZero, or this is going to be the end of the show here for them. For Astralis, this is going to be a pretty straightforward clear. You really want to get that top control and start working into the soft breach of J90 and stuff like that, and Retro is going to be a big part of this, but that's the biggest thing. Astralis cannot suffer early damage here, otherwise DarkZero can possibly get away with a lot of this. We honestly saw a lot of rotation from Astralis on this side as well when they played it on defense. Almost a really big play from Shuttle, if you guys remember as well. So there's a lot of opportunity for playmaking inside of this space.
So Astralis will be looking to try and shut things down here, and this is going to be against the site where we saw the least successful defense from DarkZero so far this half. Astralis had no problem at all, especially once they took main stairs control, clearing out the rest of that inside setup. And this round, if I remember correctly, was nearly flawless, if not outright flawless for the Astralis attack here due to how well things went. It's going to be that slow broil, though, just as we saw in pretty much every other round for this map. Astralis need to spend plenty of time on drones. That has been their forte for this matchup here to get the intel necessary to isolate out the individual members of DarkZero and go for one clean, swift execute in order to win the round.
Oh, very similar straights here for Astralis. Inside of this round, as we saw from the last, which means Canadian will more than likely, I know, Iconic is around this space soon enough if he does step up into Gold Vault, but might take some time for him. It's going to be a clear here for Astralis across the board, and this is exactly how they need to be handling this. Need to make sure that they know where the current positioning of these DarkZero members are on this mid floor, get a head count, and see necessarily what they need to deal with off-site. That's the big play here, especially when you're able to get that count early and be like, okay, yeah, there's 2 people inside of site, we got to deal with 3 roamers, let's see what we can get done. That's going to be the game plan right now for Astralis. They've also got control of that top floor like we were talking about. They really want to get up here, get control of these hatches, and start getting J9 into positions of power to start using that sledgehammer, break up some of this floor, and force DarkZero into some pretty unsafe waters.
But with a harsh angle here to try and punish the positions being taken up by Astralis on the other side towards the open area, or rather towards the front of the building itself, but neither one going to be met with too successful of a fight there. As no damage is taken by either party. And I know, of course, working on the top-down angles here from the sledge now that we have seen Astralis take the full second floor control, but it's not necessarily going to translate to any sort of immediate impact here. As you can see, DarkZero will be dodging these angles for the most part here, so J90 will not be able to find anything inside of the first 2 minutes, and on top of that, again, we are falling into the last minute or so of play here, so Astralis going to have to start putting the pressure a bit closer to the site, and I'm not sure if they've made as much success in figuring things out as they had on the last attempt here.
Well, now, Astralis inside of the 5 versus 5, the first fight goes their way as well as DP Fire eviscerates Eclipse on Marble. That's going to be a huge player down here as well as some very solid info onto 2 other members here, and DP Fire well aware that someone can flank him from the stairwell, but doesn't know that it's 2. He'll step up to the plate and try and get something done inside of sight, assisting Iconic will get yet another kill here, and DarkZero now down to the last 2 members. And guess what? They know exactly where they're coming from as well. This is unbelievably scary for them in the moment, but this case still needs to go down. DP Fire will start that up as Pambazoo will drop in. Can't get the initial shots. Canadian can, though, as he's now down into the 1 versus 3. But this is for Sweden, folks. Right here, right now, the 1 versus 3. Can Troy get it done? Can he head back to the major? We haven't seen him in so long inside of a LAN. He'll be able to get the initial one, but what does he do with this time here? 30 seconds remaining inside of this clutch. He knows where the next target is, but does he know anybody is close? Has the one back, gets the second one, and oh my god, Canadian. It's a triple kill for him. Big bad Canadian on the steamroll right now, and J9 seals the deal. Canadian can't get it done, and DarkZero doesn't have enough in the tank.
Almost had another screaming clip there from Canadian, the worst gun in the game again, and he almost does it. Seems like that gun works out pretty well for him, but he's going to fall just short in this instance. Instead, it's Astralis taking control of this matchup here at the bitter end of regulation and sending the Sonics onward to the major. A big congratulations to them, and of course, a massive congratulations to Astralis for this big upset here today against DarkZero.
Absolutely, and I mean, you have got to just tip your hat to Canadian on that one. 11 frags coming out of him, and not something that you see every day, especially from Troy. You know, he's usually in that IGL position, making the flex picks to try and assist the team, not get frags, but it was a necessity for him today. And he's part of the reason that they stayed inside of this game for so very long. But Astralis, congratulations, folks. You guys deserve this one. A hell of a game here on Bank that ended up being very exciting.
Like I said, the drone work and intel work coming out from them, specifically in those early and mid-round situations, was absolutely on point. So many clean executes on what can be some very difficult sites to process through just due to how many secret spots players have. We saw that as well in one of the defensive rounds there where DarkZero finally started to come back a little bit. We saw them finding these little tiny pixel angles to knock out the members of Astralis there in at least one player's case with 1 HP as well. So some incredible stuff coming out from DZ, but just not enough here today to fend off Astralis, who brought a much more impactful performance to the table.
It's a game of margins, my friend. And this one was a lot closer than I think a lot of people, took it for, especially with Astralis coming out on top. I don't think very many people, I mean, Twitch chat, you can tell us how many channel points did you guys lose, because it has to be an absurd amount. Because I honestly, myself, believed that Canadian and DarkZero were going to win the first one, and it was going to come all down to the wire to see what they could get done at the end of the day. But, I mean, the deal is done. They're not going to Sweden.
We'll have to see about that, of course, when we get back to our desk in just a few minutes here. But once again, Astralis, that's going to leave them in a great position, too, here as they push forward a little bit. Once more, unfortunately, probably not enough to move themselves into our NA Finals or, of course, the Major. But it's a good primer, of course, to see what they're potentially going to be able to do over the next few months and what potentially next year may also hold for this squad as well. I think that they're building up quite well, and I think that we could very well see a very, very prominent team come out of Astralis moving into 2022.
It's growing pains, man. It is. With DarkZero, they've always been quite the structured team, and with Canadian coming in with his fresh ideas and his champion level status, I think it's going to take some time for people to get used to playing with such a highlight player. But that's going to do it for John and I on the desk right now, folks. We're going to send you guys to a break. We have a beautiful analyst desk right after that.
What does it take to call next? Follow us for a deep dive into the Rainbow Six community, breaking down barriers, taking you behind the scenes, and showing what it means to level up.
If you want to get better, try reviewing your game footage. Insights.gg's game capture tool makes recording and reviewing fast and easy. With no lag, automatic recording, and instant highlights, it's never been easier to learn from your gameplay. Try it for free at insights.gg today.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the NAL Analyst Desk. My boys, Caliber, Jacob, and Jesse, and we just saw Astralis put that work down against DarkZero. It looked like a clutch to continue the game with the Canadian, but it didn't go all the way. Shout out to Astralis for getting that win, and we have an interview with their coach, Easily. You guys know him. We love him. Let's get him up on the screen. Easily is that guy that has helped Astralis so far this journey. Try to battle it up, and Easily, it's good to see you on the screen. First question I want to ask, man, it's been rough. I know you guys have had a rough stage so far, but it has to be a big sigh of relief to be out of relegation territory, right?
Yeah, honestly, definitely not the start of the season that we wanted to, but at the same time, it's really good knowing that we're going to have another year to redeem ourselves, and this season should be a motivating factor for us, being like we never even want to be close to this position again, so we need to work twice as hard as we did to make sure that we're guaranteed a top 4 team next season, and we're not even battling for relegation.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you guys have improved a lot over the course of the stage, and of course, over the last 2 weeks, you guys have had that time to work on yourselves. You didn't have to worry about a match last week. So what has it been like for you guys behind the scenes? What have you been working on to try to get this big win here today against DarkZero?
Honestly, it's been a lot of self-improvement, just a lot of watching back our scrims, seeing rounds we lost, especially against the better team, seeing where we could be better, picking out every little detail that could be better, and trying to be perfect at our craft. And that's all you honestly can do. And I think with the help of Astralis, we've been working a lot with Casper, who's their performance coach, and he's been a huge help for us behind the scenes. So I want to give a huge shout out to the whole organization over there who's been making a world of difference throughout this whole stage.
Let's talk a little bit about the differences between stages 2 and 3. Obviously, the way that you guys played back in stage 2 was enough that you very nearly almost made it to the Mexico Major in the first place. But then when we jump into the start of stage 3, is there one thing that you can probably point to as being a big factor for why you weren't able to carry over that same stage 2 momentum into stage 3? How would you rate kind of how you guys did in stage 3 overall as a whole?
We kind of try to switch up our play style on attack mainly, and it didn't really end up working out. We kind of tried to go into a more freeform style, and toward the middle of the season when we lost a couple games, we were like, this really isn't us. We kind of went back to our roots and kind of went back to a little bit more structure. We had a role change, putting shuttle onto hard breach and retro onto flank watch, and that kind of just gave us a new look, kind of, and it kind of sparked a fire in everyone to keep getting better, and we kind of had to master our new roles, so it kind of felt like playing all over again. It was like a nice little honeymoon phase. And then just overall, the role changes have been really good, and I just hopefully it keeps improving going forward now.
I do have to say, baby-faced Easily, you look about 10 years younger right now, man. You're looking good. You roll back the hands of time.
Thank
But
you.
I do want to leave this floor to you to basically share any memories that you have about Kickstarter, and also for the fans out there, the viewers, and shoot, even us here on the desk, anything you guys or you would like to share with us about why we should really look forward to seeing Astralis play next season.
Yeah, so I want to talk about KiX a little bit to start. He was a personal friend of mine who I've known back since year 1. He was just overall a great guy. I've never actually had a conversation with KiX that I just didn't enjoy. He was just all around positive vibes, and he was so passionate about Siege and everything he did for the game. He was always asking for feedback on his R6TMs, on his stream and everything like that. So I think it's just really important to celebrate his life and just never forget what he actually did for this community, and he'll be cemented as forever legend, in my opinion. And for the rest of the Astralis fans, and even the fans who are new and coming over from Astralis CS, and we know we've seen a lot of new people on Twitter, we want to just let you guys know that we're working hard, and we want to thank you guys all for your support day in and day out. And shout out to Astralis, the organization, shout out to all our families and our friends back home that are rooting for us, and that's it.
Kevin, thank you so much, man. By the way, we still love seeing you guys rocking the Astralis jersey. Tear it up next season, and we can't wait to see you guys tear it up on stage. You have a good one, all right?
I appreciate it. Have a good one, guys.
No problem, man. You take it easy. So, fellas, with the replays brought to us by our beautiful people over at Predator, Astralis ended the stage strong. We spoke about their struggles this stage, and getting a big win to kind of beat a little upset demons against DarkZero had to have felt good on their side, right?
Yeah, I looked at DarkZero and thought just because it's Bank, they probably were going to come in with the advantage, but Astralis shocked us. The second time that we've seen Bank play it in this stage of the North American League at all, and it goes the way of the Starboys. This is really intriguing to me, honestly, because I do think it was a good half. It was 3-3, DarkZero on attack. We've stressed this enough, still made out with an even half, and then we get to defense and Astralis run roughshod.
This was kind of an interesting game because we almost had two different scenarios where DarkZero came into this week with 3 games to play. Astralis came in with just 1. So they really did do their research. They were really prepped on Bank, and they looked fantastic on it.
Right, and take a look at the stats right now. Whew, Astralis with the 7-4 victory, but big shout out to J9 with 11 kills and 6 deaths. King Iconic right behind him with 10 kills on his own, and fellas, Canadian. Canadian, 11 kills. And it was weird, Jesse, because, you know, I came into the room and I was looking at the clips of Canadian, and I was like, Jesse, what's going on? What happened with the roles?
Yeah, well, Veli, you walked in, you're like, man, Clip's doing bad. And I was like, Veli, he's been on Thermite. He's been on the Hard Breach. And Canadian was really picking up more of those fragging roles. He was playing on some Yana. He was also playing a lot of Monty. To start off this game, he was playing that role. And I think it worked at times. The very first round, they came out with this pocket Monty strat. They didn't clear anything. Walked down dirt, went for the plant, and it worked pretty well. But beyond that, they brought in another time when they were trying to attack on that top floor. CEO really weren't finding success there. I think Astralis did a good job after the shock wore off of sort of going around the Monty, picking off the other players. And I remember in that CEO round, I think it was the Monty in a 1v3 or something at the end, and you're never going to win that. It doesn't matter if you got the plant down. You just don't have the firepower to win that many gunfights. So yeah, it was a weird one for the roles on DarkZero on attack. In the end, it had its ups, had its downs, but who knows what we'll see in the future for DarkZero.
Well, also, speaking about, we don't know what we will see in the future with DarkZero, Jacob. That last play, man. Yo, we almost went crazy. That Canadian clutch, that almost happened.
Yep.
And Astralis won at the end, but how nice would it have been to see that last kill go down?
I yelled French from the lobby immediately as soon as this round was over. So just looking at this, this is Canadian in a really, really good position to get all 3 frags. He knows where everyone is initially too, and you can tell game sense, sound cues, perhaps even pings. I don't think that even happened here. He gets one prone player watching across. There's no chance for Retro to swing back around and find that kill, which means he's still safe. But what he doesn't see Retro yet. He knows that there's still someone there. He's looking for J9. He's back in the middle of open area looking for his opportunity to find this last kill, and it's so potent. But what happens is J9 waits, he baits, gives Canadian the chance to reveal his position, and then because he knows he has a faster firing weapon, pops right back up, finds his head, and that's the end of the game, and may also be the end of DarkZero's chances to qualify for Sweden.
Hey.
The craziest thing too, all of his teammates, no intel. They were all just watching his POV because they didn't have cams for that. So that was all off game sense.
Absolutely not. So Jesse, that is it for Astralis. They won the last game of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you have to say about this team, and what are your hopes for seeing them in Season 3 for the NAL?
Really rough start, but they really showed a lot of growth these last couple of play days. I was really worried about the role change that they had brought in with Shuttle going over to Hard Breach and Retro moving to Flank Watch. I wasn't really confident in that, but I think they've shown at this point that they've made it work. It's all going to be okay. They still have, I think, SI quals coming up soon. I don't know if they are mathematically limited from SI or not. What the points on that, it's not likely no matter what, but they're still okay. They can still play in those quals, and yeah, I'm excited to see what the future holds for Astralis.
Yeah, that I'd say, what would you grade Astralis after their Stage 3 performance? To me, it's like a raging C- almost for kind of how they played.
I was gonna go B.
You'd go B, really?
I think the upswing at the end was really
had
important.
high expectations for them.
We did, which is why for me it's like so low, because I did want them to do better than this. But
next time, I'm hoping so. But
yeah,
for those of you that don't follow our social pages, I don't know what you're doing with your life. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, banger content and everything else. But we also have community polls. And the question is, NJR and J9 have been huge for their teams this stage. Who will show up and perform today? Jesse, heading into this matchup, who would you have rooted for?
I would have thought J9 because he's had some ridiculously pop-off games. Like, NJR is fantastic, but I think J9 has been more of a big player that can get those explosive matches in.
Right, Jacob?
I actually don't know on this one because NJ had a really good performance yesterday, and J9 took a long time to get going today. I think overall, the one who performed the most, I do think, was J9, even if it was a slow start. So,
right. Well, we all know NJR and DarkZero. They're very popular, but let's see what the results will be. Me personally, I think J9 has been tearing it up, but not in this poll. He didn't. He lost 30 to 70% to that boy NJR. So that is that. But fellas, coming up next, we're going to have another great game. And remember, this isn't just 4 games today. We're going to have 5. Yes, DarkZero lost 1 of 2, but they will play at the end of this play day. And hopefully, I mean, if all the drama unfolds perfectly, we'll see who will lock up that last major spot that game. But ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere anytime soon, because coming up next, we have some more exciting matches for the NAL. We'll see you after this break.